Ever felt the gut-wrenching twist of betrayal? I lived through it. My soul shriveled, nausea overwhelming me as I struggled to grasp the reality of her adultery, my wife, my partner, in the arms of another. I was in shock. I knew what she was playing at. It was called adultery, echoed in my head, a cruel testament to the deception that unraveled everything we built. Do you understand what I'm saying? Sometimes when a woman reaches a certain age, she, like a lot of men, need, well, reaffirmation. Reaffirmation they are still sexy and desirable, they said, but no excuse could mend the shattered trust. This is my odyssey through betrayal's aftermath. Enjoy watching it. On a clear, sunny midsummer morning, I stood watching the city wake up from the side of a big ship leaving Oakland's port, moving under the big bridge. At just past 6 a.m., it looked like the city, hit by the sun, was waiting to come to life as people from it and nearby places would fill its streets. I saw the sun bounce off buildings, the YMCA by the water where I spent many hours staying fit, the ferry spot at the Embarcadero, the shiny office tower where I worked for 15 years, and the tower where my unfaithful wife worked. I saw all this as I left, heading to Asia, maybe not coming back. Today was my 50th birthday, and I felt a twist in my stomach, wondering how my perfect life had fallen apart in just 3 weeks. I had gone from being happily married and nailing the biggest deal at my law firm to being alone and jobless. I made these choices, but didn't choose what led to them. I couldn't help but smile at the irony of my run from the nightmare I found out about. In 2 days, my wife and I were supposed to start a 6-month cruise to bring us back together after 25 years. Instead, I was on this ship alone, feeling empty because our marriage was a lie and she didn't love me anymore. It was my 50th birthday. Happy birthday to me. I lifted my head from the work papers that had kept me busy for the past months. I was in the back of the town car that had picked me up from the San Francisco airport. I felt as happy as I could be in a long time. I had just nailed a huge deal and made my law firm big league. I was buzzing with pride and couldn't wait to tell my wife, Helene. Now, we could finally take that dream vacation we'd been planning for months. And I'd done it all 2 days ahead of schedule. Driving by the Palace Hotel on Market Street, my tired eyes spotted some incredible legs in sheer dark stockings and a short blue skirt ending in sky-high blue heels. The person was wearing a business suit jacket and had auburn hair to their shoulders. From the back, I knew it looked like my wife, Helene. She always wore business suits with skirts, but never something this bold. She was also wearing a gold ankle bracelet, which she used to find cheap. But it was Helene, no doubt, as I saw her turn onto New Montgomery Street. "Dimitri, stop the car!" He stopped at the next corner while I watched my wife walk up the steps into the Palace Hotel. "Dimitri, I'll walk. Can you take my suitcase to my office and leave it with Susan?" "Sure, Mr. Connors." He smiled, tipped his hat, and I gave him a 20. Walking toward the hotel, I was eager to see Helene. I had amazing news to share, holding the slim black folder that made 2 big drug companies one. Our firm was going to make a fortune because of it, all thanks to me. Halfway to the hotel entrance, I started to wonder what Helene was up to at the palace. I couldn't call her from LA or the airport because I was stuck on my phone giving last-minute tasks to my office in San Francisco. A flight attendant even said she'd grab my phone and break it. Right after landing, I dialed Helene's office and got her assistant, Beth. We don't really use cell phones during work because we're often in meetings. "Beth, can I talk to Helene?" "Hi, Michael. She's out, had a late lunch plan, and won't be back today. Tried her cell?" "Thanks, Beth." "I might, but I hate to bug her." "Michael, she'd want to hear from you more than anything. You're away a lot." "Thanks again, Beth. Bye." Then I was about to hop into a car outside San Francisco International, and my phone buzzed with a question about a deal paper. I slowed down near the hotel entrance. Maybe Helene was with her friend Suzanne for lunch. They've been doing that a lot. But why dress up so much? I entered the hotel and scanned. Not there. Heading to the eatery under the big glass roof, I finally saw her. Actually, she was in a big chair near a pillar, facing the place in a hallway crossroads. She missed me because she was busy with her planner. I stepped back to a lobby corner. From here, I could see her side, the hallway, and the eatery. She looked up, dialed someone, but got no response. She seemed upset and snapped her phone shut. She tried pulling down her skirt, but her legs were still in the limelight. At 45, she was still the most beautiful woman, at least to me. She was tall, about 5 feet and 8 inches, and very slim, maybe 110 pounds. She had long legs and was very pretty. She always looked perfect, like she came out of a magazine. Looking up and down the empty hall, I wondered who she was waiting for. I took out my phone and called her. "Hello, darling." Helene knew it was me from her special ring. "How are you?" Her fake voice made me alert. What was she up to? "Hello, darling, just wanted to say hi and that I miss you." Why didn't I tell her I was here? Something stopped me. "Oh, Michael, I hate it when you're away. I just sit here, miss you, and make everyone else sad." I tried to laugh. "I know. I miss you too. Can't wait to see you." "Michael, I wish you'd come back soon. When are you coming back?" Just then, I saw him. It was Brian Taylor, a boss at Helene's work. He walked down the big hall, smiling like he was excited, looking right at Helene, or really at her legs. When he got close, Helene put up her hand telling him to wait. "Still there?" I was so shocked I stopped talking. Brian frowned and mouthed, "Who?" Helene quickly put her hand over the mouthpiece and mouthed back, "Michael." "Oh, sorry, got sidetracked." Helene smiled, looked around the empty hallway, smiled at Brian, and lifted her dress a bit, showing her legs. She had on fancy stockings held by clips. He smiled and licked his lips. "Michael, sorry, things are kind of messy here right now." "Well, my love, maybe I should let you go. You seem busy. Call me back in a few hours when you're not so distracted." Brian was touching her knee through her nylon socks. "Okay." I barely said, "Call me tonight, will you, Michael?" "Michael, are you okay?" Brian had moved his hand higher up her skirt. Helene grabbed his hand, telling him no with her look. Still, she was smiling. "Goodbye, Helene." I hung up. "Michael? Michael?" I heard her say my name into the now silent phone. Shock hit me hard. I knew what she was doing. It was cheating. I felt sick, my heart sinking. I needed space to think, to decide what to do next. I stepped back, hiding in the lobby's shadows, and dialed Susan, my assistant. "Michael, where are you? Your bags are here and everyone expected you sooner. Some partners are asking for those final papers. You have them, right?" "Yes, I have them, just had stuff to do." I saw Helene push Brian away. She stood up, looking upset. My phone beeped, a call from Helene. She left a message, looking worried. I had tried to sound normal when I said, "Goodbye, Helene," but I think she sensed my sadness. "Susan, I need to be on the 7 o'clock to LAX." "Okay." I heard her hesitate. She knew I just came from there. What could I tell her? Maybe just say Helene was with Brian Taylor and I needed time to think. Then, an idea. "Susan, I have the contracts, but I need to go back tonight. Old man Charos is throwing a big party and he really wants me there." "Okay, Michael, I'll book your flight. Need a place to crash?" "No, the invite said I can stay there, but I do need a car." I was making things up as I went. "Oh, Susan, if Helene calls, please don't say I was here. She's already mad about me being away so much. If she knew I was here and left, well, you get it." "Michael, I get it. You two really should take that trip together." The thought made me uneasy. She laughed. "Speak of the devil. Helene's calling me now. Congrats, Michael." I hung up. Helene had stepped away from Brian to talk to Susan. Every time he got close, she pushed him back. She ended the call and looked, well, deep in thought and somewhat annoyed. Finally, Brian walked over, took her by the elbow, and led her to the elevators. She still looked lost in thought as they walked away. Helene was a courtroom lawyer, and her gut feelings had helped her win many cases. Right now, her instincts and perhaps our 25-year connection were buzzing. She just couldn't pin down what was bothering her, maybe guilt. They entered the elevator. Brian's hand was on her backside as he guided her in. Why didn't I step in when Brian started getting too close, or as they headed for the elevator? It was clear to me what was going on between them. They were not just meeting up, they had been together for a while. I wanted to call them out, to punch Brian's smug face. He was around 35, good-looking in a youthful way and one of the company's latest big shots. A real golden boy. Helene claimed to dislike him, but she doth protest too much, I think. Like I said, Helene's job is fighting in court. Her job was to make the judges and folks deciding the case see her side, even when it looked like the other side was right. She was good at it, making them believe her and leaving the others just scratching their heads. Over time, Helene used a softer touch to get what she wanted from me, too. I kind of knew her game, but I played along. I knew if I ever tried to call her out, she'd twist things around so fast I'd end up saying sorry. But that wasn't for me. I wasn't about the showy court stuff. I was all about the quiet work of deals and joining companies. It's all about the details. And for Helene and Brian, I was going to dig deep into those details. I took the chair my soon-to-be ex had just left. Her scent was still in the air. She dressed up for him, even in the ways she knew I liked, but hadn't for me in ages. She used to laugh off my likes as just men being men. I flipped my phone open and hit a number fast. Sarah, Michael Connors. Is your boss there? Sarah worked closely with Terry at their investigation office. I'd known her for ages, and my company always worked with them. I helped her move to San Francisco after she left her bad marriage and the FBI 9 years back. Sarah usually joked back, but she heard something in my voice and quickly got Terry on. Hi, boss. What's going on? Terry called me boss, since I used to be her supervisor at the bureau. We stayed friends. Terry, I need to talk now. Sure, 10 minutes. Your office? No, I can be at your place in 5 if you're free. Okay, Michael, see you soon. Her voice got soft. She hardly ever called me Michael, but she knew something was up by how my voice sounded. I'll have a cup of joe ready. Or do you need something stronger? No. See you in about 5. I had been thinking hard since she picked up. I had a plan forming, and I needed her smarts and help. I was really mad, and someone would pay for it. Terry sat close to me on the big brown couch in her office while I told her the facts. She asked a few things, but mostly let me vent about being betrayed by Helene. You done? I had been talking for about 10 minutes. I looked at her and nodded. She took my hand. Her fingers were cool as she touched my hand. Michael, I get you're mad and this is hard, but if you want me to dig into this, you have to step back. I looked at her. Okay. What we might find could really hurt you. Do you still want me to look into it? I nodded. Michael, sometimes folks, when they get older, need to feel wanted again, like they're still attractive. This happens in many marriages. I've seen it a lot. But most times, these folks realize what they have at home is way better than what they were chasing after. Get what I mean? Yes. Love Helene? More than anything. She's my only love. That's what hurts so much. If we dig deeper, it might be even worse than you think now, and fixing things might not be possible. A lot of times, these flings are just about sex. The person splits their feelings, but they still love their partner. A very painful way to show love. I know. But if we go deeper, you might end up throwing away 25 years of marriage. You should face her now and tell her to stop. If she's really the Helene Connors I know, she will. Once she knows how much she's hurt you and how she almost lost you, she'll have to choose. And Michael, no one is better than you. I wish I felt that sure, Terry. Seeing them together, I wouldn't bet on me. Terry waited. I heard her, and she might be right, but I wanted to make Helene learn a hard lesson. One about being true and how her choices could hurt her too. The second she stepped into that lift with Brian Taylor, I felt our marriage was done. Them together is a picture I can't scratch from my mind. With my way of doing things, I needed all the facts before tossing aside 25 years of marriage. And if she was ready to kick me out for some young jerk, I'd be ready with enough proof to beat even her top lawyer. Let's start looking into it, Terry. She looked at me with those amazing blue eyes. She was really pretty, and I could see her feeling sad for me. That look, I had seen it just once before, long ago, as I lay bleeding in an ambulance and she held my hand. All right, boss, we're on it. She went to her desk, threw back her blonde hair, and picked up the phone. George, it's Terry B. Need a favor. Yes, again. You owe me. I need to know if you have a booking for a Brian Taylor or Helene Connors. She waited. No? What about under the name of Williamson and Jenkins Law Firm? Yes, that's it. A suite, rented by the law firm. Got it. She nodded and wrote down a number. Thanks, George. One more thing. I need rooms 807 and 803 plus the one across the hall. Any issues? Yes, we'll pay the full price. Yes, today, tonight, and maybe a few more days. Make it happen, George, and have the keys ready. Harry will pick them up in a bit. She glanced at her watch. 20 mins. You got this, right, George? Thanks, but remember, you owe me. Next, she called another number. Harry, stop what you're doing. Get to the palace now. On the 8th floor in a rented suite, Williamson and Jenkins will have a guy and a girl. No, don't know how long they'll stay. Just go, bring your gear. As she talked him through, she agreed to add 2 more from their team to help. She'd call them. He needs to hurry, get there, set up. This is happening, Michelle. Still time to stop, she said. I shook my head, stood up. A rented suite, eh? She never said her company had one. Wonder how long. She just shook her head. Thanks, Terry. How much to start? She looked like she'd say no, but then nodded. $5,000 now, then we bill you. Sarah will handle it. I didn't want Sarah to know, but Terry had to tell her since she'd managed the investigation. Just stay out of it, boss. If you poke around, I'm pulling my team. I get it, Terry. But old habits. Just do it. I'm busy anyway. Boss, need into your house. Okay? Going there now after office work. Joe Fields will come over. You know Joe? Yeah, top at Bugs and Cams. Let him work. Agreed? Agreed. Take care, Michael. Tell me where you'll be. She hugged me, a surprise. Thanks, Terry, for being a true friend. She tried to make things feel lighter when she joked, "You'll not see me as a friend when you see my bill." I smiled at her as I walked away, feeling lucky to have someone like Terry. She was a true friend for many years. It was sad that she and Helene didn't get along. I walked to my office, my mind racing and my heart heavy. Why did Helene go for Brian Taylor? Could there have been more? What was Helene thinking? I was away a lot, but it never hit me that Helene could be unfaithful. I stayed true, even when I had chances. Maybe that's why I missed her being untrue. I thought she was like me, loyal to just one person for life. Why? 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 Michael, well done. Great job. Jake Farber snapped me out of my thoughts. He was one of the first to help start our firm and shook my hand. I couldn't help but smile back. Jake was a true mate, there for me through everything. He knew we were set for a big win with this deal, but he was really happy for my hard work and success. We'll miss you these coming months, Michael. But if anyone needs a break, it's you. I know you and Helene will enjoy it. He shook my hand again and went back to his office. I went into my outer office. Susan looked up. She'd been my right hand for nearly all of the 15 years. Together, we'd pushed this firm to be a top player in San Francisco's legal world. She was tall, pretty, 35, with 3 kids. I'd spent more hours with her than my own family. She stood up. I gave her the folder with the agreements. Congrats, Michael. I just nodded as I moved past her into my office. I looked out at San Francisco Bay through the big windows. I'd worked so hard to get here, but now it felt like it was all for nothing. What's up, Michael? I looked at Susan, not sure what to say. She knew me too well. Hiding anything was tough. Sitting at my desk, I felt awful. Susan came over, standing close, her side touching my arm. She laid a plane ticket in front of me. This is about Helene, isn't it? The story you told me about going back to L.A., you're just trying to leave town, right? I just nodded. Helene sounded really worried when she called. I've never heard her like that before. She was looking for you. I told her you were still in L.A. for meetings. She said you called her and seemed out of it. She was concerned about you, said you should call her. Whatever's going on between you two, Michael, I know Helene loves you and cares about you. You need to talk to her. I looked up at my friend Susan, her face full of worry. Susan, Helene is seeing someone else. That was all I could say, feeling so upset. Susan looked shocked. She leaned in and hugged me. Michael, whatever you need, I'll be here for you. You know that, right? I felt her tear drop on my neck. I was in my new Audi S8, stuck in traffic on the Golden Gate Bridge. Helene used to say it was too much, but I loved it. 360 horsepower, leather all over. It didn't make my drive from Sausalito any quicker, but it felt and smelled amazing. Sometimes on weekends, I'd drive towards the Russian River, finding curvy roads to really see what it could do. I'd play some Clapton and enjoy the drive. But today, it felt like I was driving to my end. I thought back to when I met Helene. It was at a dinner thrown by a buddy from law school. She wasn't even 20, studying at UC Berkeley, and I was 24 in my 3rd year of law school. I never stood a chance. Right when Helene met me, she knew I was the one for her. But that feeling didn't last 25 years. After I finished law school, we got married. A few months later, I passed the bar and joined the FBI Academy. Megan, our first kid, was born after Helene got her degree from Georgetown in Washington, D.C., where I worked. Elizabeth came 3 years later. When Elizabeth began preschool, Helene started law school at UCLA while I worked as an FBI agent in LA. Just before I left the FBI due to a scary shooting incident, Helene started her law job. She couldn't bear the thought of me getting hurt again. We moved to San Francisco, which was good for us both. I wanted to start my own business, and she wanted a steady job, so we worked at different places. We both did well in our jobs. Helene loved the tough battles in court. Her salary helped us get by until my business took off and I started earning a lot more. She could have stopped working to stay home with our girls, but she liked her job too much. I think she felt like she was competing with me. I didn't want to compete. Our love life was great at first, but then 2 years ago it began to fade. I was traveling a lot, and when I came back, Helene had excuses or we ended up fighting when I tried to be close. I was confused and sad. Eventually, I stopped trying. How long had it been? I was near Sausalito trying to recall. It was New Year's Eve. Yes, we both drank too much and ended up sleeping together. It wasn't about love, just sex. I felt sad realizing we weren't close anymore. I figured she preferred someone else now, maybe more than one. Looking back at those past 7 months, I really missed our close times. I definitely missed Helene, and now I felt she was gone for good. A van marked Al's TV, appliance, and cable service showed up, meaning Joe Fields was here. He's a big guy with sandy hair, once an NFL player until a knee injury ended his career. How he got into spy stuff or met Terry, I didn't know, but he was top-notch. After saying hello, I let him in to look around. Then, I went to my room, took a shower, and changed into comfy clothes. Helene didn't like this one jacket I put on, but I found it comfy, and it worked with most things. I started packing a bag with casual stuff and some extra bathroom things. I knew Helene wouldn't realize I was here since she never checked my stuff. I put my bags down near the bedroom door and felt a twinge at the thought of her with Brian in our bed. That thought led me to snoop a little in her space, which I normally wouldn't do. Her closet was full of work stuff like mine, nothing jumped out, but in her drawer, jackpot, I found 2 fancy bags from Victoria's Secret. One drawer had just a slip. It was old, over half a year. It showed she bought 10 pairs of thin, liney socks, 2 silk tops, and 3 belt things for stockings. In another bag, there were 4 new socks and a slip from a month back for 10 pairs. It also listed 3 more belts, a silk coat, 2 tops, and 3 magic bras, plus 1 bustier. So this started back in January, maybe even before if she threw other bags out. Next, I found several of the belts, all used and washed. Helene had never worn any for me. In the same spot, beside the belts, was a card with Helene on it. It wasn't my writing. I sat on the bed and opened it. Helene, you're great and pretty and hot, and did I say hot? Our times together are so good, I wish we could always be together. Brian. It was 3 months old. Helene was silly to keep it unless she planned to be with Brian always. My hand shook, my gut turned as I held the card. Maybe she was just waiting to show me the door, but then, why was she all in on our trip? Or was that to keep me from seeing the truth? She was the one who wanted the trip. I didn't want to at first. Work was busy and we weren't close like before. Why spend 6 months with someone not into being close? As always, Helene got her way, but I was still confused when she talked about it being romantic. Romantic for who? I put the card with the 2 slips in my coat pocket. Nothing screams cheating like a love note does. I took Joe around the big bedroom and showed him the phone. I asked if he needed more. Michael, can you get into your wife's computer? Her computer. Right. How did I miss that? I led him to her workroom. It was tidy, full of files, but well kept. Maybe she was really sorting things for our trip, or maybe getting ready to leave with Brian. I found a paper under her keyboard with lots of passwords. The top one, written in red, was Lisbeth 2. That was our second girl's name, now 20 and at college. She goes by Liz now. Joe turned on her computer and used the password. He got in quick, looking at her emails, even ones she tried to hide. I didn't stay to watch. I knew what he'd find. Then I went to my own workspace. Files were done or given away, ready for me to leave. The room was bright and full of good memories. My law degree and FBI graduation on the wall. I took only a small photo of our girls from my desk and left it all behind. Next, I went to the safe in the garage. Helene always said it was a pain to get to, but it was hidden well, usually under a car. I took my passport, birth paper, our wedding paper, $5,000 in cash, and $10,000 in money orders. This was half the cash for our trip. I thought about vanishing for a bit. No credit card clues. I grabbed my Glock. A tiny voice in my head nudged, "You know their spot. Why not deal with them now?" But that wasn't how I rolled. I was sad, but not dumb or mean. I took the gun because Helene hated them and would trash it quick if we split. And if what Terry found out and my hunch were right, talking to Helene again might not happen. I was about to close the heavy door when I stopped. Off went my wedding ring. I stared. It was special, made of twisted gold, just like Helene's but smaller. It meant 25 years together, years I hoped would go on till the end. I sighed, dropped the ring in the safe, and shut it. "Beth, it's Michael again. Sorry to bug you, but I can't reach Helene. Any clue when she might call back?" "Sorry, Michael, no idea, but she might later today. Want to leave a voicemail?" "No, I'll just tell you. Let her know I'm flying to D.C. tonight. There is a mess with a deal because of the government and worries about a foreign company taking over a big local one. Meetings all day tomorrow. I might be busy a few more days." "Oh, Michael, that's tough. She was really hoping you'd be home." "Nothing I can do, Beth. Gotta finish this deal before our trip." "You'll be back for your birthday, right?" "Wouldn't miss it." I tried to sound upbeat. Beth knew I didn't like big parties. Getting me to go to this one took a lot of effort from Helene. She promised a small goodbye party, but soon, over 100 people were invited. "It's still a bit away. I'll have everything ready then," she said. That made me think of a surprise for Helene's birthday. I decided to test something. "By the way, Beth, Helene's not at the palace this afternoon, is she?" There was a quiet moment. "I don't think so, Michael. Why do you ask?" "I was talking to Jake Farber at work, and he thought he saw Helene entering the palace around 2. Another pause. "Michael, I can't see why she'd be there. Jake must be wrong." "It's okay. Just tell Helene. Thanks." "I will, Michael. Safe travels." I'm not a court lawyer, but I spent 10 years with the FBI. Beth was hiding something. She knew where Helene was. I drove my sleek black car, making one more stop before the airport. I called Connie Mabry, the top divorce lawyer around. She'd be tough against Helene. They'd met in battle before. Terry. I drove my old minivan from the office in San Francisco to Sausalito. I smiled, recalling how Michael found this van for me. He teased me about my mommy van. Michael loves cars. Since his job did well, he got a fancy sports car. Some guys use big cars to show off, but Michael just loves them. He pushed me to pick a more fun car, but I said I was a mom and needed a mom van. He just smiled and hit the web to find the right van for me. And he found it. A 1-year-old van with not much use, sold by a family moving overseas for work. I was a bit worried about buying a used car, but Michael made sure it was checked out and I saved a lot of money. He didn't want anything back, but he did let me buy him lunch. Then we started having lunch once a month. I ended up getting the investigator's job with his law firm, but I earned it fair and square. We had one strong tie, and it was because of a very bad day in Los Angeles. Thinking about it reminded me why I had to go to Sausalito. It was 10 a.m. on a Friday, Michael's 50th birthday. "Where are you, Michael?" I didn't want to go to Sausalito. I didn't want to meet Helene. I didn't want to hand her the divorce papers and tell her I knew she was unfaithful. I last saw Michael on Wednesday, 2 days ago in Palm Springs. My briefcase was stuffed with photos, emails, recordings, and DVDs that showed Helene was with Brian Taylor for the past 7 months. I had looked at it all and was sure once Michael saw any of it, their marriage was done. At first, I couldn't get why Helene would be with Brian, or why she'd hurt Michael like that. Was it some weird thing with getting older? It couldn't be Michael's fault. He was the nicest, most loyal, and a good-looking guy many women would wish for, me included. He was away a lot in the past year, working on a big deal. But that's no reason to throw away 25 years of marriage. After looking at the emails and Brian's reports, I thought I knew why she went for an affair with Brian. I shook my head. I've loved Michael for over 15 years. I was 21 and new at the FBI when we met. Michael was my first boss and always kind. He was loyal to just one woman, Helene. We'd only been working together a short while when a messed-up bank robbery changed everything. Usually we wait the bad guys out, but they were high and wanting to hurt people fast. Michael and I were there and found a back way in. Hearing a gunshot, Michael said, "Terry." We can't wait. Tear gas now, he shouted into his radio. Ready? I nodded, gun ready, as he opened the door a bit. Another shot, and we rushed in. That scene sticks with me. Sometimes it jumps back in my mind out of nowhere. 2 people were on the ground, blood everywhere, and a robber was holding a woman, gun to her head, yelling, "You're all going to die!" He didn't get to say more. Michael shot him. Even through his mask, you could see his shock. His gun fell, and he landed on the woman he was holding. Then time slowed down. The gas from the cops broke through the windows, taking the attention of the other bad guys. They looked our way. I shot one of them twice. He dropped his big gun and fell. Michael hit the third one in the head and neck. Blood went everywhere as he turned, his weapon flying, hands up like he could stop the shots. The last bad guy was hiding behind a desk at the front and started shooting through the gas. With the gas, he was just guessing, but with his gun on full speed, he didn't need to aim to hit us. I stood ready like I was back at training, gun in hand. I figured I was too slow and wondered what getting shot would feel like. Then Michael jumped in, firing and pushing me to the side right as bullets came at us. A shot hit me and I went down. I lay there on the cold floor trying to breathe. Wow, that hurts, I thought. The side of my chest felt smashed. It got real quiet except for the sound of the gas and some crying. It felt far off. The front doors flew open and SWAT guys with masks ran in. They're late. It's done. FBI saves the day, I thought. Then I noticed Michael wasn't up. Nothing else mattered, and I felt cold fear. "Michael, where are you?" I rolled over, hurting. I knew my ribs were broken, but my vest had kept me alive. I found out later the shot that hit me was at an angle, or it would have gone through the vest. Michael was close by, on the ground, not moving, his head covered in blood. Oh God, not Michael. One of the SWAT guys came through the gas, kicked my gun away, and aimed his gun at me. "Don't move." I saw him. He looked younger than me. I said weakly, "FBI, we need help for Agent Connors now." Michael made it, but had to leave his job. He told me later Helene said if he didn't quit the FBI, she'd leave with the kids. She didn't want to worry every day if she'd lose him. We both got praised, but I knew my mistake nearly cost Michael's life. He saved me, but wouldn't talk about it. Every time I said sorry, he'd stop me. "Terry, it's done. Don't fret. I'm okay." My ribs got better, but my heart took more time. After 5 years, I left the bureau and married a cop. That was a bad choice and ended fast, just long enough for me to have a baby. I think I knew I only loved one man. I took my money and moved to San Francisco to start my own detective biz. After a few slow months, I bravely visited Michael. "Terry, you look great. Pregnancy suits you." I wished the baby I was carrying was his. As ever, he was kind and helped me out. He became a quiet helper and sent work my way, including getting me a partner, Greg Teller, a retired cop from Oakland. Greg knew people and stuff around here, and soon we had lots of work and needed more hands. I was happy when we got a job at Michael's place, but I never thought I'd be checking on Michael's wife, Helene. Helene wasn't glad to see me in the hospital room with Michael after he woke up. I was there a lot in the 3 days he was out, and Helene barely came. When he woke up, the hospital staff called her. I never got over her taking more than 2 hours to reach the hospital after he woke up. My chest hurt. I was on strong meds, but I wouldn't leave his side. Helene waltzed in, smelling fancy and looking like she was off to a photo shoot, not like someone whose husband was nearly gone. She said sorry to Michael after giving me a look that screamed, "Why are you still here?" Her reason? She was caught up in a big court case and just couldn't leave. It made me mad she did that to Michael, and even madder that he seemed okay with her being like that. Back then, I thought she was just looking out for herself, a thought that time only proved right. Too bad Michael had to get hurt to see it. Conversation 1, Terry and Michael picked me up just after noon from the Palm Springs airport. It was blazing at 108 degrees, F, so we hurried to the cool of his home in a fancy community off Frank Sinatra Drive. He looked oddly at ease and healthy. A break from work really did him good. It was sad I had sad news to share. He handed us iced teas and we sat at his table, looking out at a green golf course. "Michael, I have everything here. If you're thinking of giving Helene another chance, maybe don't look at this." He shook his head and started going through the thick file. It was full of notes on all the times Helene met up with Brian these past few weeks. My team did a great job keeping track. They noted when and where Helene and Brian met, how long for, and what gadgets they used to listen in. My folks were pros at watching. I had another folder too, filled with their emails to each other for almost a year, showing their affair step by step. For some reason, Helene had kept all their letters and texts. That was a big error because after they got close, Brian's texts got too bold. Michael, who liked details, took his time going through the events. He looked shocked and maybe upset when he saw the last part, so on Saturday night and some of Sunday, she took him home and had him in my bed. Sorry. He said sorry for his choice of words, but I knew it was just that. Nothing more. That's okay, Michael. I knew for Michael, that last act of cheating would be what ended their marriage. And you have pictures, DVDs, and sound of all their times together? Yes, except for the day you asked us to start watching. That day at the palace, we could only get some photos and put in a listening device around an hour and a half after they got there. So you mean you missed their time together? Well, no. We just didn't catch the first time. Michael looked hurt when I said that. I'm really sorry, Michael. Helene being untrue was not new to Michael, just the full story was. I had told him bits over the phone as we looked into it over the last weeks, just times and places. Now, he was seeing everything. I hoped he didn't want me to stay to watch the DVDs. I had seen all our videos of Helene and Brian together. They had met 4 times in the last 2 weeks. 3 times at the palace in the afternoon, and the last time at Michael's house over the weekend. From what it looked and sounded like, it was her first time inviting him over. Big mistake. Let's see the photos. I slowly gave him a big envelope with maybe 105x7 photos inside. Most were still shots from the DVDs. Michael, they're in order, starting with the first day of watching, I told him. He took out the first photo. It was just Helene. She was just in a big soft hotel robe, the kind you find at fancy places. My friend, Janice, dressed up to sneak in as room service, caught her right as she walked out of her room, fresh from a shower with a brush in her dripping hair. She's pretty, right? Michael said to himself more than to me. Then he added, really soft, she looks like she's just been with someone. Yeah, she's pretty. Hearing him so sad made me feel like I was going to cry. I wanted to hug him, try to take away all that pain and anger. He got up, grabbed a vodka bottle from the bar, and came back with it. I shook my head when he put 2 glasses on the table. He poured a lot into his and downed it fast. Michael flipped through the photos quickly. They were all much the same. His wife and another man in ways that were too private. I was glad it wasn't the videos with her voice in those moments. When he saw the last pictures, her and the man in Michael's own bed, he stopped, put them back in their envelope, and poured another drink. I'm not sure if he noticed how his wife looked in the last few shots, like she was miles away. I had seen everything, heard it all. Watching her with another man in their house, I thought she was just pretending, putting on a show. I wondered why she would do this if she didn't enjoy it. Did she always dislike being close, or did she have that much hate for Michael? At the end of the video, I understood why. Terry, that's enough for me. I still can't wrap my head around it. It feels like I'm watching a bad movie, but it's my wife in it. Mike couldn't wrap his head around it for weeks. Why would she do this? To him, her, their family. Didn't she think about what it would mean if he found out? Mike, you should read these emails. Why? You pay attention to details. I think you'll understand what I did. All right. I gave him the papers. He poured more vodka and started reading, taking slow sips now and then. Finally, he put them down and looked off into nothing for a bit. Then he said, I can't believe it. She fell for this guy's lies. I thought she was the smart one, always asking questions. She never even asked me. I just watched him. He starts with sweet talk and it just goes on. But Helene's been fooled before. Then he starts hitting at me without using my name. Calls me the husband, then the always gone husband, then the cheating husband, after he keeps saying I must be cheating. He even had the nerve to say my not wanting sex with Helene meant I was cheating. Mike pointed to a line in an email from December by Brian. Helene, he must be cheating. I don't see how a normal guy wouldn't want you all the time. Looking back, Helene got cold around then, but I was too caught up in work to see it. God, the New Year's party. Brian was there. He danced with her. She got really quiet, then drank a lot, which was not like her, and she took me home and tried to show me what I was missing or going to miss. That was the last time we did it. There was no love. She was all over the place, trying to prove something. Oh, sorry, Terry. Didn't mean to make you blush. They got busy, started sleeping together in January. But he keeps throwing dirt on me even after he gets what he wants. What's he after besides messing with my wife? I don't even know this guy, so guess it's not a personal thing. But why? Michael, I think I know why. He waited. Money. What? I did some digging on Brian Taylor and found some stuff. Oh? Well, first off, Brian's 35 and has been at Helene's job for 10 years. He did really well in school at Hastings and grew up in Denver. He became a big deal at the job at 30 and brings in lots of cash. They think he's golden. He's got a fancy place in the city that costs $3 million. His house loan is massive. He's been married and divorced twice, and both his exes got a lot from him. Guess why they split and won big? Michael just stared, starting to get it. The mix of pain and anger in his eyes was clear. Michael, he's living way beyond his means, so close to losing his fancy car and home. Michael took another sip of vodka. So he's after Helene's and my money? Yep, that's my guess. But there's more. What else could there be? He doesn't like you, Michael. What? It's kind of personal. He just doesn't like what you stand for. What? Looks like Brian grew up without much and now he wants to live it up. He can't stand seeing someone else doing well and being happy. He's already messed up a few marriages and even got one wife pregnant. Seems like he's got something wrong inside and can't find joy in what he sees as happiness. Christ. I'm lost. How can he aim for our cash? I can't see Helene in love with this man. She never spoke that in her emails. Did the tapes say anything? Nope. But if he can shove you aside, he might see a shot. Well, looks like he's halfway there, huh? Kinda, sorta. What? Michael, I've dug through all this stuff and watched the DVDs. Gotta tell you, on Sunday, Helene called it quits with him. Michael stared, his eyes full of questions. So she's with him in my bed, then says it's done? In short, yes. How'd he take it? Not good. But what matters is what she said. I can't make you watch it, but from what I saw, Helene was just acting all weekend. She knew it was over. Great. So Helene's new thing is a goodbye fling and then we're out. Michael spat out bitter. Listen, Michael, I wrote down what she said to him. Think you should read it. Terry, just spill it, okay? Michael, to put it simply, she tells Brian she truly loves you and plans to forgive your slip-up. She said you two will take the trip she planned and fix your marriage. She realized you're the only man she needs and won't waste 25 years of being together. Michael looked shocked. I handed him the transcript pages. He held them but didn't look. So what did that jerk Brian do? It looks like Mr. Taylor was shocked for a bit. Seems he thought he might be joining Helene on that trip if it ever happened. So he really went all out, telling Helene he loved her so much that he even asked her to marry him, but she said no, stood her ground, and in the end told him he had to leave. Helene finally saw him for what he was? Yeah, but now Brian's trying to force her hand. What? On Monday we got video from her office. Video. Brian told her if she doesn't pay him $500,000, he'll tell you about her cheating and hand over all the emails and some photos he took when they were too close. What did Helene do? She was mad and kicked him out, but he called the next day saying he wants an answer by Thursday, which is tomorrow. After he left, she cried a lot. Michael took his time, sipping his vodka. Terry, do you know someone at Helene's place? Yes. Can they get into Brian's computer today or tonight? Wipe everything about the affair, I mean really scrub it clean so no one can ever find it. And do the same at his place? I think so, yes. His place might be hard, but I know people who can handle it. We'll also look for any copies he may have made and his digital camera. And Terry, wipe Helene's computers too. I grabbed my one-time use phone and called Joe Fields at my office to get it done. I also asked him to dig up everything on Brian's finances, including bills and expense reports from the firm and anything else money-related. Brian worked for some big shots in San Francisco, and I had a hunch he might be cheating them too. Finding proof he was stealing would be great. Michael, have you talked to Helene lately? He just shook his head. I've been dodging her calls since day one, 2 weeks back. She's been leaving more and more messages, sounding quite worried. Now I get it, she feels bad or thinks I'm off with a made-up girlfriend, or maybe both. I know her routine well, so I ring her up when she's busy with her Pilates or I leave a message with her office mate. I always keep my voice light, saying I'll wrap things up and be back by Friday in time for the party. I think she's starting to panic, and maybe she should. She's got reasons to worry, especially with her lover twisting her arm for money, he said with a heavy heart. I really can't face or talk to her ever again. I thought she was tricked by Brian, but these pictures are stuck in my head. Worse, she fell for his lies. After 25 years, she didn't trust me but him. She saw me as the one who went wrong. She broke my trust and lost hers too. He looked so down, but his eyes were set. It was clear that things with Helene were likely done. One more thing, Terry. Is Brian the only one? I'm not sure, Michael. Seems like it's just been him for the last 7 months. Why? She's been off for 2 years, not wanting to be close, making up reasons, almost avoiding me. Makes me wonder if there was someone before Brian. I really hope not, Michael. Want me to check more? He shook his head, looking completely lost. Beneath his tan, he looked like he had seen the worst and was heading into a nightmare. I've had a thing for Michael for so long, and I guess, in a way, I should be glad I can finally show him how I feel. But watching him, I couldn't find joy. I loved him so much, his hurt was mine. Oh, Michael, I'm so sorry. I put my hand over his. He looked at me and something changed. His eyes shifted as if he saw me new, not just as a friend. Maybe that touch, my hand on his and him seeing my care, my love for a brief moment made my feelings clear. I got scared and moved my hand away. I didn't want him to think I was using his bad time for my gain. He smiled and took my hand back. A tear slid down my cheek. Terry, thank you for being my friend. I sat, feeling the warmth of his hand. My heart thumped loud. I dreamt of moving closer, kissing him, hugging him, sharing all my love, then him loving me back. I always pushed down the part of me that wanted him more, but it was there. My whole body longed to be close to him, to be his. His voice broke into my thoughts. Let's go to dinner before you go back to San Francisco. I don't like eating alone, and the country club here has great steak. I'd love to, Michael, I said in a low voice. He grinned. And it'll look good for me at the club if I show up with a beautiful blonde. I felt a warm blush of joy. I was glad I dressed up, wearing a knee-high skirt, a white silk top with a couple of buttons undone, and heels. I felt pretty good, considering I was almost 36 and a mom with a minivan. Just one more call. He got his phone and called. Sherry, it's Michael Connors. Is Connie there? Thanks. I'll wait. Connie, Terry's here. She says you got the same papers I do. He listened. I want you to go on. When can the judge sign the papers? Okay, that sounds good. I'm still fine with splitting the stuff. He listened more. This time, longer. I get it, but let's keep it this way. Oh, and Connie, I want her to get the papers at the house on Friday. Yep, on my birthday. Seems right. Hold on. Got an idea. I think I'll have Terry give them to her. I was shocked and shook my head hard. You'll send the papers to Terry's office after they're signed? Thanks. And Connie, thanks for all. This one might be hard, and I'm glad you're with me. He listened a bit more and then said, goodbye. Conversation 2. Terry and Helene driving up to their big house in Sausalito was super tough. I didn't want to, but Michael said I had to be the one to give Helene the divorce papers since I had all the other proof that wouldn't usually be given to her lawyer right away. So it was my job to hand Helene the divorce papers and then show her the photos and the DVDs and emails. All the proof of her cheating would come out on Michael's birthday, during a party he didn't want and wasn't going to. It made sense, but I hated bringing the bad news. I sat in their drive for a bit, calming down and checking my gear. I was wired. That was my idea. Michael knew nothing about it, but I needed a backup plan in case Helene tried to claim she never got the papers or pulled some lawyer trick. The device I had wasn't really a wire. It was small enough to fit in my suit jacket pocket, just like my iPod, and it could send signals to a tiny mic pinned to my jacket. It also sent sounds to another recorder in my van. I wasn't taking any risks. I put on a neat gray summer suit with a red silk shirt. The skirt came to my knees, and I wore dark blue heels with light gray stockings. I wanted to look professional as I met Helene. I couldn't guess how she would react. The big wooden front door was open when I got there and rang the bell. Helene, looking great with her auburn hair and a ponytail, wore navy shorts, a white shirt, and high-heeled sandals. Walking over the stone floor with her phone to her ear, she seemed surprised to see me, but let me in. Look, I told you those tents need to be up by noon, not arrive by noon. Got it? She sounded really upset, trying hard not to shout at the person on the other end. I don't care how, just make sure they're here and set up on time. We have a deal, and I'm expecting over 100 guests in a few hours. Those tents need to be ready, she demanded. I walked into the cool house, taking in her fit and tanned figure. The photos didn't lie. Helene was tanned everywhere, no tan lines. She thought she was going on a cruise Sunday, so she'd want to look her best, in case she had to outshine some young woman for Michael's attention. Knowing how full of herself she was, she might have just dressed up to catch eyes, especially from young guys like Brian. If I didn't dislike her so much, maybe I'd feel bad for her. "Terry, what a shock. You're here way early for the party," she joked. "If you're looking for Michael, well," her smile dropped. "He's not back from DC yet. Should be here by 5. I gotta talk to you, Helene." She noticed the 4 big yellow folders I had. "All right, let's head to the dining room." I followed her to a big room with a long, shiny wooden table in the center, a pretty flower setup on top. She shut the door, stood without asking me to sit, and asked, "What's this about, Terry?" I placed 3 folders down and from the 4th, pulled out the divorce papers. I handed them to her without a word. She looked confused as she took the papers. She quickly read them, her face turned red, and she snapped shut. Then, looking at me, she exploded, "That absolute jerk! He's leaving me! That jerk! If he thinks he can just do this, he's wrong. I'll make him regret this, the jerk, the absolute jerk!" Helene crushed the papers in her hand. "I'll make sure no other woman goes near him. He won't have a dime to his name. How dare he?" Pacing, all worked up, she cried out, "I spent months on this birthday party, and over 100 people are coming soon. How dare he do this to me? I'll show him once I catch that cheating jerk. He thinks he can leave me for some young girl. He's going to regret it. And you, Terry, came to rub it in, huh? I see how you've always looked at Michael, showing up here, 9 years back with your baby bump, asking Michael for help." She paused and stared at me. I was boiling with anger. "It's you, isn't it? You've wanted him all along, haven't you? No use hiding it because I know about your lunch dates at the boulevard. I bet it's not just lunch happening. If I find out it's you, I'm going after you just as hard as him. I couldn't take it anymore. Stop it, Helene. Just stop. I'm sick of your yelling." She looked shocked by how loud I was. "You want to know why Michael wants out? Well, how about this? How dare you accuse him of doing wrong when it's you who has—" She just looked at me, her face going pale. I walked closer to her. "Listen here, Helene. Michael is the kindest, most true man out there, and no matter what you've heard or think, he's never cheated on you with me or anyone else." Helene kept staring, not getting what I said about her cheating. I've never said this before, but the day Michael got hurt, I made sure I was with him to the hospital. He woke up for a sec. I held his hand and he told me to let you know he loved you so much and was sorry he couldn't grow old with you. That's who he is. I've seen it, at parties with all these women around him, and you're off doing your business. His eyes are always looking for you. Even though a lot of women daydream about him, he doesn't even see them. He could walk into lunch with no clothes, and he'd just offer his coat so you don't freeze. He's always had eyes for one lady, and that's been you. How can you not see and mess this up?" Helene leaned back against the table. I showed her the pics I had in the envelope and put them out next to her. "Look at these photos. Thought you could hide this? This is why Michael is leaving you. It's all here," I said as Helene looked shocked, like I'd thrown a snake at her. I picked a few photos to show her. "These really show your wild side, Helene, don't they?" She pushed the photos away and they scattered, making a mess. "No, no, no," she cried. I got out another envelope. "Helene, if those shocked you, these DVDs will too. I've seen them and they're awful." I put the discs on the table. "Watch them when you want. And here are lots of emails you sent to your guy, Brian Taylor." Helene fell into a chair, her face pale. "Oh, and here's one last thing," I said, pulling out a final item. A card from Brian saying, "Our times are so special, I wish it was always just us. Found in your stuff." She cried, shaking her head over and over, saying, "No, no, no." "Last thing, more photos of your Brian with other women in a hotel. Seems he doesn't love you as much as you thought. Or maybe he likes many at once. But since Michael knows, Brian can't use this against you anymore." She looked up fast when I said that last bit. "Yes, Helene, we know all about that mess, and how you sent $100,000 to a hidden account for Brian just yesterday. Was that the full deal or just the start?" "Oh, God, no." Her head shook as tears fell. Michael. Has Michael seen? Yes, you silly woman, he's seen everything. Oh, no, no, no. Helene cried hard without stop. I felt no pity. Helene, you're the silliest smart woman I know. You let Michael down, and you played games with that sneaky Brian Taylor. I can't get how you thought Michael was cheating. Where were you these 25 years, you silly woman? He was all in for you. Then you pull this. You know what I think, Helene? I think it's all about you. Your pride, your needs. You had everything, but it wasn't enough. You wanted to think Michael was cheating to cover up your own wrong steps. I'm not sure if Brian was the first, but I really doubt it. Helene, it's always been about you, hurting everyone around. I didn't like you from the day you showed up at the hospital 2 hours late with that weak excuse about being busy with work. You know what I think? I think you were messing around on Michael even then. Or you just didn't care enough. Which one is it, Helene? Are you just a silly, proud woman, or were you cheating way back then? God, no, Terry. You have to believe me. You have to make Michael believe me. I'm silly and proud, but I never cheated on Michael before with anyone. Until Brian. It was just for kicks. I didn't think it would hurt Michael. It was just a bit of fun. Tears ran down her cheeks. Fun? Christ, Helene. Your fun just wiped out 25 years with a man who gave his life to you. You thought about this before you started messing around? I asked. She stepped back when I spoke those words. Terry, I've messed up. But I truly love Michael. He's the only one I've ever loved. From the first day I knew he was the one for me. Oh, I've been so dumb. Very dumb, Helene. I know. Michael wasn't around much. I guess I liked the attention. It made me feel young and wanted again. And during that time, you turned Michael away. Didn't let him show you how much he wanted you. You dressed up in sexy clothes and stuff for Brian, things you hadn't worn for Michael. How do you think he felt finding that note among the sexy outfits you were wearing for Brian? And that was before he saw the pictures and videos of you with, what did you call it? Brian's magic stick? She started to cry again. Oh no. I've seen the tapes, Helene. What was it about Brian? It's not like he was great or anything, but he sure seemed to please you. But maybe it's the thrill of cheating that got you going more than the act itself. I don't think those were fake. She lowered her head, covering her face with her hands. After a moment, she looked up. Terry, I've wanted to end it weeks ago, and maybe if Michael had been around, I would have. I missed Michael's love and knew I had to find my way back to him. I wanted us to go on that cruise, to be away from all this, just us together. I thought we could find what I thought we lost. That day, the day the first picture was taken, I wanted to end it, especially since Michael sounded so odd on the phone. I was worried. Maybe I knew he'd found out. When I couldn't reach him, I got mad and thought Brian was better than being alone. Well, Helene, looks like Brian's out of the picture, but so is Michael. Now you're all alone. I almost said she'd find other guys to sleep with easily, but I kept quiet. She started to cry again. Terry, I need to see him, talk to him. I've been so dumb. I love him, only him. I want to get back with him, feel his hug. Where is he, Terry? I must talk to him, make him get it. Helene, I swear, if I knew, I'd tell you. I left her there, tears falling, her head down on the table, photos all around. I passed through the sliding wooden door and saw Liz. What's wrong, Terry? Is it something with Dad? Did something happen to Dad? I just shook my head. Your mom needs you now, Liz. Be there for her. I walked to my van, still hearing Helene cry and Liz asking what was wrong. I felt terrible. Michael's plan did its job. My showing up in the pictures broke Helene, but I felt no joy. Michael hadn't shared his plans or where he was going with me. He just said he needed a break. I had hoped to be the one to comfort him, to give him my love, make him happy again. It pained me that he didn't say or take me with him. I loved him so deep it hurt me too. As I drove away, tears came. Happy birthday, Michael. I wish I knew your place. I miss you a lot. Then I woke up to my phone blaring. Terry, Dad's been shot. The first thing I heard, pulling me from a deep sleep. As I grabbed my phone, I saw it was 3:20 a.m. The caller kept talking. A lady from a company named McGregor Global Shipping called to say Dad got shot. They're taking him and his team to Zurich, but she didn't know how bad he was hurt or how it all went down. Maybe in Somalia. Why would Dad be in Somalia? It's hard not knowing. We thought you could help us find out more. We're so worried. Megan, give me a sec to wake up and grab something to write on. I knew it was Megan Connors talking, telling me this scary news. I thought of Michael on the cold bank floor in LA and felt so scared and sick. Oh no, Michael, what happened? I thought. Megan? Yes. Okay, slow down, tell me everything. Terry, just now a woman called. She was from Global Shipping Limited in London. She asked if I was Megan Connors. It felt like a crazy call since it was 3 a.m. I said I was and almost hung up to go back to sleep. Then she said Dad got shot. She had to say it twice before I got it. I thought he was in Brussels or somewhere in Europe. I can't believe he was in Africa, and I can't believe he's been shot. Megan, take a breath. Silence. Now let me write this down. A lady from McGregor Global Shipping International said your dad was shot and they're flying him to Zurich. You're sure she said Zurich? Pretty sure, but I was really upset. Okay, you keep saying we. Is Liz with you, or did you call her? Liz is here. We stayed up late planning the wedding and she slept over. Oh no, my wedding is in 8 weeks and Dad's supposed to walk me down the aisle. Should I put off the wedding? Megan, just hold on. Let me figure some things out. I'll call Global. Okay, stay close to the phone. You can tell them I'm working for you, okay? Sure. If I can't get the info from Global, I'll reach out to some pals at the State Department. They might know who to call at the U.S. Embassy in Switzerland. Thanks, Terry. You were the first person we thought of. We know you care about Dad and that you could help find him and how he's doing. Sorry for waking you, especially since it's Saturday. It's okay, Megan. I'll ring you as soon as I find out anything. I've got both your cell and home number. Thanks, Terry. We were just so worried. I get it. But if he's headed to Zurich, that means he's still with us. That's good to know. I heard Megan cry a little. Megan? Yes? Everything will be fine. Your dad is tough. He's made it through tough times before. As I said that, I thought back to that tough day in L.A. Megan sniffed. Thanks, Terry, for being such a good pal. Oh, Megan, have you spoken to your mom yet? No. Should we? She's been hard to deal with since, what happened with Dad and him leaving. She would just scream, "It's all my fault," and fall apart. It's been 4 months, and Liz and I are trying, but it's hard not to be mad at her for what she did to Dad and us. Let's keep this between us for now, just until we know more about Dad's situation, okay? Okay. And Megan, remember she's your mom, and she loves you and Liz. I know she still loves your father, too. She just made a big mistake, and she's dealing with that. Terry, do you think they could ever get back together? I don't know, Megan, I don't know. If your dad didn't still love your mom so much, he wouldn't have been so hurt. Maybe this time apart has helped him start to heal. Maybe. I hung up and sat on my bed, feeling really worried. I had almost lost Michael once, and the thought of him hurt and alone was too much. Why was he even in Somalia, and now flying to Zurich with some team? What team? Last time I heard, he was in Brussels. I got a card from him just days ago. Where are you, Michael, and what's going on? These past 4 months have been hard. I felt lost without Michael. He'd been a big part of my life for nearly 9 years. I missed him a lot. He used to tell me everything, like when we worked together on the Charos business deal. Michael didn't like surprises, but then Helene surprised him big time. We used to meet every week to talk about the Charos project. I'd call him a lot, and we also had lunch once a month. Those lunches felt special. We hardly talked about work. It was more about catching up and sharing a bit of gossip. We always ate at Boulevard, by the water. I always made sure I looked good for those lunches. My daughter Cassie even noticed. You look so nice today, Mommy. You're meeting Mr. Connors, aren't you? Yes, sweetie, I am. He's very important to my work, so I always try to look my best. Now that she was 8, she saw more. Mom, I think you really like Mr. Connors. I sure do. Every summer, Michael came to our work picnic. He always played games, and often I'd find him with a sleepy Cassie on his lap, sitting under a tree with a book for kids near him. Last Christmas, he took Cassie out to buy gifts, and they even had lunch at a nice place. He never forgot Cassie's or my birthday, even when he was busy with work. One day, he shocked me by coming to Cassie's school play. He even talked to Megan and Liz about us. They told him they liked him more because he loved Cassie. Now that she was 8 and acted older, Megan and Liz started taking her shopping with them. They treated her like a little sister. That made me feel closer to Megan and Liz, too. Helene knew about Cassie. Michael never hid it. But to Helene, we were a danger to her marriage, even though Michael loved her. In the past months, I thought a lot about that meeting at their house and what Helene said. Michael's close bond with Cassie and our work ties didn't make her happy. It seemed her view of her marriage was all about her. I started to see that as things got bad with Helene, Michael got closer to us. Was our bond with Michael a reason or just an excuse for Helene to do what she wanted? Cassie missed him too. Liz and Megan tried to keep her busy. They even wanted her to be a flower girl at Megan's wedding in January. Christmas was soon, and they planned to take her shopping, but she wished to go with Michael. "Mom, when's Mr. Connors coming back? Will Connor be back soon? It's almost Christmas, and he said we'd go shopping like we do every year." "I wish I knew when he'd be here, sweetheart. But remember, in a few days, Liz and Megan will take you shopping." I really like them. It's like having two big sisters. Jenny at school can't stand her big sisters, but I love mine. But it's not the same as with Mr. Connor. I gave her a hug. Cassie was tall and looked older than she was. She was going to be very pretty when she grew up, but she was still my little girl. Whenever I got a postcard, so did Cassie. Michael had traveled on all kinds of ships and sent us a card from every place he visited. I kept them in the drawer by my bed. The only letter I got from him was from Yokohama, about 2 weeks after he left. "My dear Terry, I miss you and Cassie. There, I said it. When you're on a big ship, you have a lot of time. Each day I walk miles around the deck, one way one day and the other way the next. Being in the middle of the ocean makes you think a lot. I'm starting to heal, and thinking of you and Cassie helps. I often think about our dinner in Palm Springs. I'm glad you picked a quiet spot over the country club. You made me laugh and I realized how much you mean to me, and the long hug at the airport felt like you wrapped me in your love. When I brushed a tear from your cheek, I didn't want to leave. Terry, I want more hugs, more dinners, and no tears unless they're happy. I don't know when, but I will come back, and I want to hold you tight and feel your arms around me. Terry, thanks for being my friend, my secret keeper, and my guiding star back home. Love, Michael." His words made me cry. He didn't say I love you. It was too soon. But when we hugged goodbye at the Palm Springs airport, I felt whole. I knew I could wait forever for him to return. I kept his letter close. I didn't need to read it. I knew it by heart. Work kept me busy, which was good. The case against Brian Taylor took about a month. With help from some pals in the Treasury, the IRS, and the local police, I built a strong case. After long talks with the office boss and then the top bosses at Williamson and Jenkins, they fired Brian. He got caught for stealing money, spent a few days in jail until he could pay the big bail. The firm wanted to just fire him, but with all the stolen money and the threat of many harassment claims, they decided to really go after him. He also faced losing his license to practice law. I kept an eye on him. Last I heard, he was living with a rich lady in Pacific Heights, spending his days writing legal papers and bugging his lawyers. Even if he avoids jail, he won't work in San Francisco again. Helene was a different story. She vanished almost as much as Michael. Liz and Megan said she took a big payoff from Williamson and Jenkins and didn't work now. She hardly left her place, just ran or went on bike rides. She told the girls she wanted to look good for when their dad came home. Megan said Helene moved a bed into Michael's study to feel closer to him. They also said she took all the stuff out of the big bedroom and couldn't stand to go in there anymore. For months, they said, just stepping into that room made her cry. "Why doesn't she just sell the place?" I asked. "Oh no, Mom believes Dad will come back, forgive her, and they'll keep living in that house. Terry, we get it that there's no way Dad will ever stay in that house again. It's sad because we have a lot of happy times tied to that place. But Mom messing around with that guy in Dad's bed means they need to start fresh somewhere else. What made her do something so mean to Dad?" "I'm not sure, Liz. Sometimes, after many years, love fades. Then one or both people might look for something new. It's more common than you think. But Dad's so, good-looking. I had college friends who'd have wanted to be with him." Liz laughed. "I know some of my friends are too keen to see what he'll do next." I wanted to talk about something else. I didn't need to hear about young women wanting Michael. "So she still hasn't agreed to the breakup papers?" "Nope, she won't. She says she won't until she sees Dad face to face, tells him she's sorry and how much she loves him." Megan added, "I wish Dad would just come so they can sort this out. Oh, and Mom's seeing a therapist. She says it helps her see how selfish she's been. Megan, don't say that. Liz, it's what she admits. That's how I heard about Helene, through Megan and Liz. I don't think she really gets how much she hurt Michael. She still focuses on her own guilt and loss, and she still thinks saying sorry can fix it all. I still didn't know how it was going to end. I had the letter from Michael, but he was still with Helene. Suddenly I was back, and it was 3:30 Saturday morning. I miss you, Michael. Please stay alive. Please. I picked up the phone. Healing, Michael. The dream came back. Stuck in the Black Hawk helicopter as it dipped down fast towards the ground below. I pulled hard on the co-pilot's door release in panic. The light from the big gun's shots lit up the dark, and I could feel the hits on the body of the chopper like heavy blows. The pilot worked hard to make it steady. Right behind me, the door gunner shot back with his gun as we dropped, trying to hit the gun that was hitting us. I felt the gun's fire heat on my neck. The pilot made us even just as we landed on the soft sand by the beach. A bullet hit my thigh as I managed to open the door and fell out onto the warm tropical sand. I screamed in shock and pain. I woke up with a start. Are you okay, Michael? No, yes, Gina, I'm okay. Dreaming again? Need something to help you sleep? Does it hurt? No, I'm okay, Gina. The leg just aches a bit. I'll try to sleep again. She sat by me on the big bed. Gina was Angelina, a tall, slim, and dark-haired beauty from Ukraine who looked after me. The light from her room door showed her outline. She wore cream silk pajamas that showed her shape. She had come from the next room of the suite when she heard my shout in sleep. Maybe I'll stay here a bit. She sat close on the bed and touched my forehead. I just watched her. She was beautiful, with shoulder-length dark brown hair, bright green eyes, and much younger than me. Her pajamas showed she was cold. You seem cold. She slipped under the covers. 4 weeks later, I was on my way home from Zurich in a big private jet thanks to global shipping loaded. I was asleep in the small bed at the back. I woke up to find Gina's warm, bare skin against mine. We loved each other slowly. We both knew this might be our last time together. After, I held her and watched her sleep. I moved a strand of her dark hair from her face, and she smiled in her sleep at my touch. From the window, up high at 35,000 feet, I could see the Great Plains. It was December, and everything was covered in a white sheet. I thought about me and Gina. Gina had surprised me when she first came to my bed in the global suite in Zurich. The next morning, she touched me gently and gave me her big, wonderful smile. She said softly, "A good nurse looks after her patient in every way." Over time, I found out she really liked me even though we were different ages, and I felt the same. She told me about her dad's dream to move to the United States. They got lucky with the immigration lottery and chose Silicon Valley for their new home because her dad was good at building software. Gina was picked right out of nursing school by Global. She loved to fly and care for people, and Global was a place that looked after its people well. They sent planes to take their hurt workers or sometimes their families from anywhere in the world to get better care. They had happy workers, and unlike other places, didn't lose many of them. Her main job was to fly with a doctor to take sick sailors or workers to a good medical place, or if needed, to the big medical center in Zurich. She told me that the people at Global were very nice and never suggested she should be more than a nurse to them or their clients. She did say she got asked out a lot, but mostly she said no. One day, as we ate late in a cozy spot in Zurich, she told me her life was so full she had little time for love. "So where do I fit in?" I joked. "Like ships that pass in the night?" To my surprise, she held my hand across the table and looked off, caught by the fall view and the pretty Lake Zurich. She made sure we walked every day to help heal my leg. I had what the Army calls a $1 million wound. This means the bullet went right through without hitting anything big, so it heals fast. But let me tell you, getting shot hurts a lot, even if they say it's a $1 million wound. The doctors in Zurich knew their stuff with gunshot wounds, and soon I was out of the hospital and staying in a fancy hotel owned by Global, under Gina's watch. After thinking hard, Gina turned back to me. "Michael, you puzzle me. I've not met a man like you. You've been hurt, both outside and in, yet you can be so kind, making me laugh and feel cared for. You're great with kids, and with me, you're so loving. You're a man I could fall for. I've never felt this mixed up over a man, and I'll really miss you when you leave." "I'll miss you too, Gina. A lot." We walked hand in hand on the stone streets back to our little hotel, then spent the rest of that fall afternoon loving each other in the big feather bed. Gina was bright, funny, and spoke in a way that made her seem different and exciting. She was like a soothing balm for my soul and body. Her touch brought me back to life, time and time again. She helped heal me, and I was so happy to still be alive. Given what had happened, it's a wonder I was. Helicopters can break easily, especially when hit by gunfire. Someone once said, "No plan stands when it faces the enemy." They were right. Gina made a soft sound in her sleep, then snuggled closer to me. The flight was smooth, as if we had our own cozy room in the sky. I thought back to my time dealing with McGregor's pirates. Our plan, that is for 24 fighters, 6 pilots, 12 flight crew, and me, was to take down a group of dangerous, well-armed pirates on an island near Somalia. I gathered my team from former British and American military who were in Europe or the Middle East. Some already worked for Global. The Sergeant Major, a Brit and retired from the Special Air Service, their motto, "Who dares wins," and I picked the best ones. That means men and one woman with no criminal past, not heavy on drinking, passed a drug test, and most importantly, skilled in combat or flying. We ended up with a disciplined team ready for a night's operation off the Somali coast. I was the new head of security, on a temporary basis, for McGregor Global Shipping Limited. Our mission was to eliminate the pirates troubling the ships going from the Seychelles Islands off Somalia to Djibouti at the southern tip of the Red Sea. Their base was within Somalia's waters, and they had the unofficial okay from the local rulers, who were just another group of bullies. Complaints about Somalia were ignored, with some saying it was just a small fishing town. I became the head of security, even though I had doubts. On a trip from Sri Lanka to Suez, I met the top guy of Global. Every 3 months, he'd join a ship for a week. He'd just pop up and get on board. He was a friendly Scotsman named Stuart McGregor. At 60, he was good-looking and tough. After he learned about my past in law enforcement and checked with his old friend Stan Cheros, he gave me a job. We were in his cabin, drinking old port and smoking Cuban cigars in the Indian Ocean. "Michael, we're about to enter the world's most risky waters," he said. "Risky? How?" I asked. "Pirates, Michael. Pirates backed by a rotten government," he explained, puffing on his cigar. "They're getting braver, even hit a cruise ship last year. They're going after bigger targets because they got better guns and boats. It's costing me and others in shipping lots of money for extra safety steps. I hate paying to stop things that governments should. If that attack on the cruise had worked, with hundreds dead or worse, I wonder what the world's leaders would have done. Now it seems any boat smaller than a cruise ship is at risk. Lots of small ships have been taken, with their crews killed or captured. If no one else will act, I have to. I want them gone for good," he said, taking a long drag from his cigar. "I want them wiped out like pests." I knew he was getting to a point, so I stayed quiet. "Michael, I've gotten to know you on this trip." He took a sip of his port. "Michael, I want you to be my top guard." I thought he'd offer me a job at Global, but his words shocked me. He said his top guard was leaving soon and he hadn't found anyone good enough yet, despite lots of tries. "Michael, before you answer, know this. I've looked into your past. You talk little about your skills, but I found out you're more than you say. You've run a law firm well, got into big deals beyond your state, and I know about your tough time at home with your wife cheating on you. What right do you have?" I was mad he dug into my life without me asking. He cut in. "Listen, Michael. I'm good at reading people. I need you, and you need something to do. You can't just run from your life. You're going to want to get back to work soon." I thought about it. I took a drink and smoked, thinking he might be right. It had been 2 months, and I was already bored, but I didn't want to go back to San Francisco yet. McGregor waited quietly. "Okay, I'll take it. But just for a short time. Say 12 months or until you find someone else, whichever comes first." He shook my hand. "Welcome to Global Shipping, Michael." "All right. How are we going to deal with those pirates?" Quickly, McGregor got one of his big ships ready with a flat top for our 5 Black Hawk helicopters and 1 Apache gunship. We planned to fly in with 4 helicopters to drop off the fight team, and the Apache would cause chaos from the sky. I'd be in the 5th helicopter, directing everything from up high, as McGregor said I had to stay out of the ground fight. I was okay with this. We only had 6 pilots, so no extra pilots. It was a risk, but I took it. Each Black Hawk had 2 people to shoot, and the Apache was packed with weapons like 8 Hellfire missiles, 76 rockets, and a big gun. The Apache's job was to attack the pirate ships from the air. Thanks to the Israelis, we had images from satellites. We left the ship and went into the dark early morning, our pilots using night vision. Our mission was to hit them at 3 in the morning, thinking they'd be off guard or still sleepy. But there were more pirates than we thought, and lots of hidden big guns. Turns out, they were double the number we expected. But we had the surprise and skill on our side. My team was made of pros, and they showed it that night. We lost some great people, but the pirates lost it all. I drifted off again, looking at the snowy plains below. I didn't plan to fall for Michael. I didn't plan to fall for anyone. My life was good and paid well. For someone my age, I had everything, or so I thought. Watching Michael sleep, I felt something new. He was like no one I'd ever met. I felt so sad knowing soon he'd be gone from my life once we land in San Francisco. I'd act happy for him, happy he'd be with his girls for Christmas and maybe his wife who wasn't true to him. I cuddled close to him, breathing him in, feeling his strong body. He was lean but had muscles in all the right spots. I made him work hard in his physical therapy, swimming lots until he could barely leave the pool and lifting weights to get and keep his muscles strong. I was glad he got better from his leg hurt. I just wished I could help his mind, too. He was really upset that 6 from his team died and another 6 got hurt. It's a wonder any made it, given what they went through. But being with him, I felt like the most special woman. I touched the big green and red stone hanging near my heart. It was my Christmas gift. God, I don't want to love him. In our short time together, I got to know the real Michael Connors. At first, he was just one of 6 hurt in a fight on what we called Pirate Isle. Even on the plane from Djibouti to Zurich, in his pain, he cared more for his team than himself. He refused any pain help until he heard how each one was doing. He already knew about the 6 he lost. That hurt him a lot. After his surgery, Mr. McGregor put him under my care. One day at the hospital, I talked with ex-Army Captain Janice Elders. She was a tall redhead with a West Texas way of talking, and she flew Michael the night they fought the pirates. Her skills let her take control of the hurt Black Hawk just in time to land it safely. It hit hard, but didn't tip over. Janice started flying in the Gulf War, piloting a medevac helicopter in Kuwait and Iraq. Bored with her usual tasks, she joined Global and spent lots of time in the Middle East again. She flew helicopters a lot, moving stuff and people to oil spots in the sea or fixing ships that couldn't move. I read what Michael wrote about Janice. Even hurt, she pulled him away from the helicopter when it was shot at and her door shooter was killed. Janice said the other shooter got his gun out and hid with them by a small hill of sand near the water. He helped Michael with his leg and tried to make her feel better, but it wasn't long before the sea robbers attacked them. Her last shooter fought hard with his gun, but the sea robbers kept coming because of their ways. He and Michael kept them away until he was hurt too. Then Janice saw Michael stop their attackers. He didn't just shoot wildly, he took them down one by one with careful shots. The attackers were just shadows against the big fires on the island. Janice thought she never wanted to make Michael mad. Gina, he was so calm as they came at us. The way he looked when he fought made me scared. I knew the sea robbers wouldn't win as long as Michael was up, she said. In the end, they left to deal with a bigger threat from the sergeant major and his soldiers. The sea robbers couldn't fight back well, and Michael's chosen soldiers didn't come to take any of them. When the Blackhawks came back at first light, a pilot said he'd never seen such ruin. 12 big boats and some small ones were burning. All buildings were destroyed or broken, and only a few dogs were alive. The team counted more than 200 gone, including some women. For a bit, the water paths near Somalia would feel safe. Michael kept quiet about it, but it chased him in his sleep. The bad dreams came a lot. He asked me every day how folks were. Once he was up and moving, he'd visit those still in the care place, Captain Elders most of all. She was laid up with hurt backbones and had other hurts from a rocket blast. He made them laugh, then he'd check in with their doctors. He wanted the best for his crew, and he made sure they got it. I saw how soft Michael could be when he was with Janice. He often held her hand when they talked. She was clearly hurting a lot, but tried to not show it when Michael was there. Sometimes he'd just chat. Other times he'd read out loud from the paper. He never stayed less than an hour. Once, when I came to fetch him for his own fixing up, I saw him kiss her forehead while she slept. Michael didn't see himself as a hero and brushed off the cheers McGregor gave him. He dove into the daily safety tasks of global shipping. He healed well, and we liked the fall air as things turned cold in Zurich. He always had time for me. I loved his way of joking about himself and how he solved big safety puzzles. I didn't plan to fall for him, but after one night under the covers with him, I was hooked. Now, I was in his arms, watching the clock tick down our time together. I hugged him tight and shut my eyes. It was a chilly day in the Bay Area. The weak sun of late December gave little warmth. Megan, Liz, Cassie, and I found comfort in the warm, cozy VIP room at the top of the hangar where the global company plane stayed. Every little while, a server in a white coat came to update us on Mr. Connor's plane. He served coffee in a shiny pot and made sure Cassie got her hot chocolate with marshmallows. Cassie liked being treated like a big girl and really liked the tall, fancy Christmas tree. The talk between us grown-ups went from excited chat about Christmas and wedding plans for January to quiet thoughts about what it will be like with Michael back. We didn't talk about Helene. We knew she wanted to see him before talking divorce or settling things. And we knew Michael was talking to his lawyer about it. After Michael left the hospital, he started sending emails. They weren't as full of love as his letter from Yokohama, but they still made me feel close to him. I had to stop myself from sharing all my feelings and how much I missed him. I wasn't sure how things would be when he got back, but it made me happy that he wanted me and Cassie there to meet him. The plane, painted bright white with a wave-like blue line, came close to the gate. It was smaller than I thought, just steps away with global shipping and their logo on its tail. We all watched from the big windows on the third floor. They rolled stairs up to the plane and the door opened to show a smart-looking young lady. She looked back. Then Michael came out. Oh, he looked so good. Dressed in a dark green coat that looked like a soldier's, white shirt, and dark pants. He looked happy and fit from far away. She took a small bag from him and slung it over her arm. Michael held onto the rail with one hand and the young lady held his other. She said something to him and he gave her a smile. Mom, there's Mr. Connors. Do you think he remembers we need to shop for Christmas? Cassie was bubbling with excitement. We all shared a smile. Cassie, let's give Mr. Connors some time to rest before you talk to him about shopping, okay? She thought about it, then nodded. I'll wait till tomorrow. I gave her a hug. We watched as they came closer. Michael had a black stick to help him walk, but he didn't seem to mind his hurt leg much. The lady with him caught our eye. She was stunning, like she walked right out of a glossy magazine. Her dark hair matched her light skin, hinting at an Asian heritage. She dazzled in a leather jacket like from an old war movie, with a white sweater and a dark green skirt that fell to her knees. Black boots with tall heels topped off her model-ready outfit. Mom, isn't that lady pretty? I nodded. But not as pretty as you. That made me smile. If you ladies will follow me, we can wait in the lounge near the lift. Mr. Connors will join us soon. He just has to clear customs and immigration. It's quick, and he'll be here in no time, the attendant informed us. Come on, Megan, Liz. Mom, let's go see Mr. Connors, she said, tugging Megan and Liz by the hands. They smiled at me, but I hesitated, curious to see more of Michael and the intriguing woman. They walked close, almost touching, which made me think they knew each other well. She had some kind of wings on her jacket. Part of the flight crew? I wondered. Cassie, Megan, and Liz had already turned the corner, leaving me to watch as Michael and the plane lady got to the building. They stopped under the cover above the door. I was looking down at them from an angle, so I could see them really well. The lady with Michael looked very young and even more pretty up close. I watched her put her bag down and say something to him. He just nodded. Then, she did something I didn't expect. She stepped into his open coat, wrapping her arms around him inside it. She laid her head on his shoulder and just stayed there. He hugged her back and said something to her. She looked up, nodded, and then they broke apart. She gave him a quick kiss. It was fast, but you could tell they had kissed before. She looked at him a bit longer, then walked away. Michael and I watched her go all the way to the plane and into it. We saw her wipe tears from her eyes as she walked. What did you do, Michael? I thought to myself. I was a mess of feelings. Ever since that letter from Yokohama, I had dreamed of Michael coming home. I had pictured myself running to the plane and jumping into his arms. But now, seeing him with that lady, my dream didn't seem real. I wanted to be in his arms like she had been more than ever. Did he still feel the same about me? Who was that woman? I had tried to look nice for his return, wearing a red sweater and a dark wool skirt with heels. I hit the gym 5 days a week, and at 36, I felt strong. But next to the young woman from the plane, I doubted myself. Walking to the lift, my head was full of doubts. As I turned the corner, the lift doors opened. Out stepped Michael, right into a hug fest with his girls and mine. Megan and Liz were in tears, and Cassie looked confused he hadn't picked her up yet. She hugged his waist tight, squashing the flowers she made us buy for him. Michael knelt down hard and hugged Cassie back. I couldn't see his face, but Cassie's smile said it all. She, like me, loved Michael loads. My heart raced watching them. How would he say hi to me? Standing up with Cassie by the hand, the others just stood there, drying their eyes. He bent down. "Cassie, you look more beautiful than before." Cassie's smile grew as she handed him the flowers. "Thanks, Cassie. Now let go so I can hug your mom, okay?" "Okay," she grinned. He turned my way and my heart melted seeing him smile. "How are you, Terry?" I was stuck, speechless, and starting to cry. Michael. Before I knew it, he hugged me. Like that woman on the plane, I hugged him back, smelling her scent on him but not minding. His warmth, his strength were all that mattered. He was here, she was gone. Michael gently pulled back. "Terry, you okay?" "I am now," I managed to say, barely. I hid my face in his shoulder, letting all my held-back tears out. I felt silly but so relieved and happy I couldn't stop crying for a while. Soon, Megan, Liz, and I went to the big ladies' room to fix our makeup and make sure we looked nice. We took a bit longer because we all started to cry again. The girls hugged me and said it was clear I loved their dad a lot. They hoped that no matter what happened between their parents, Cassie and I would still be in their lives. Before going to meet Helene, Terry found myself touching the thick gold bracelet that Michael gave me for Christmas. I was slowly moving in the traffic before the toll place before the Oakland Bay Bridge. I hadn't taken the bracelet off since Christmas Eve. Touching it made me feel closer to Michael and helped me not to worry so much about where we were going and about driving him to meet Helene today. I was really scared that Michael would meet with Helene and they might decide to get back together despite all the hurt. The 2 weeks before Christmas were amazing. Michael was safe at home, and we were either seeing each other or talking every day. Michael and I went out for dinner the day after he got back. Now it was the first week of January, and all the holiday stuff was gone. It felt like the real world came back, just like the fog that was around the Bay Bridge today. The bracelet was more than pretty. It was a masterpiece made by an Italian artist. On each end, there was a lioness's head. One had green eyes, the other had red, and you couldn't see the part that fastens them because it was hidden where the two heads met. It wasn't a ring for getting engaged, but I thought it was a great way to show our love. Michael said he got it in Zurich. When he talked about Zurich, I couldn't help but think if the pretty young woman from the plane was with him when he bought it. I shoved those thoughts aside and let my mind drift back to that amazing night we first came together. It was the night before Christmas. He had his family over at his big fancy house on Nob Hill, a gift from McGregor Global. It was a grand old place that had made it through the big 06 quake. It was filled with dark wood, model ships, and big comfy chairs, making it feel like something from a long time ago. He asked me and Cassie to help as hosts for the night. I managed to get a last-minute slot at my go-to salon, and after, Cassie and I, in our fancy clothes, caught a ride to Michael's place. We spent the afternoon working with the staff to get everything ready. The cook had the kitchen under control, so after sorting a few things out, Cassie and I helped Michael wrap presents. It was a nice, calm way to spend the day, and Michael was super nice to both of us. We soaked up his kindness. We each picked one of the big, extra bedrooms. Cassie took a nap while I got dressed. I put on a dark green silk dress that went all the way to the floor and showed off my shoulders, stockings with a garter belt, and really high heels, with nothing else underneath. The night was very fancy. The house was all done up for Christmas, and the living room had a big tree decorated like it might have been back when the house was first built. The smell of roasted turkey and sweet treats welcomed the guests as the butler in white showed them around. Cassie's eyes sparkled as she took in all the holiday magic and looked at the big stack of presents, their shiny wrapping catching the light from the huge stone fireplace. She was in a long velvet dress, while Liz and Megan were in short silk ones. They were both tall, thin, and as pretty as their mom. Megan had brought along her fiancé, Matt. He was a captain and wore his Marine Corps dress blues. They were planning a quick wedding in January because Matt was being sent to Asia soon. They both looked so happy. Michael was looking sharp in a classic black suit. The dinner, served by 2 waiters, was great, and Michael was a top-notch host. By 9, we were done eating. Michael sent all the staff off with baskets full of Christmas snacks and good tips. He told them he didn't want to see them for the next couple of days. We sat in the living room on big, soft couches, holding our brandies, smiling as Cassie played Santa and gave out gifts. She got a big smile when she opened her iPod. I didn't want to get her one, but it looked like she had asked the right Santa. She was over the moon. I had a hard time figuring out what to get Michael. Michael looked confused when Cassie gave him a big red gift. He smiled when he saw the old ship's clock inside, tucked in its wooden box. I also got him lessons for sailing. Terry, I'm lost for words. Michael, I've known for a while you've wanted to sail, and now you're big at McGregor Global Shipping. This seemed just right. Everyone nodded. Yes, Dad. You really should take some time to learn to sail, added Liz. I've always dreamed of being on a big sailboat. Maybe a 50 or 60-footer. She laughed. Let's not jump too far, Michael tried to say in a serious tone as his daughters and Cassie talked about all the places they wanted to go, and for Liz and Megan, the tiny swimsuits they'd wear. I'm not ready to live on a boat in the South Pacific. Matt, back me up here. Sorry, sir. As a Marine officer, I've learned when to step back from a, tough spot. By midnight, it was just Michael, Cassie, and me. Cassie had dozed off on Michael's lap while he read the Polar Express. Her new iPod was still in her grip, the white wires lying across her lap. We put her to bed in a guest room, and then it was just us, sipping brandy by the fading fire. Kissing and more felt right after getting close the last 2 weeks and feeling the Christmas Eve spell. Michael is great in bed, and I was so excited as he took me to his room. Our first time was wild with passion. I'd never felt so on fire and happy. Michael was bigger than I was used to, and for a moment I thought about Brian, who was pretty average. Why would Helene leave Michael for such a man? Michael and I clicked. We were lovers now, and I loved him deeply. But did he love me? We hadn't said those words, but I hoped he could feel my love. Thinking too much, stuck in traffic on the bridge in the January fog, I remembered the Christmas party's unseen guest. Not Helene, but her missing. Cassie, Matt, and I might not have felt it much, but for Michael, Liz, and Megan, it was hard. They'd never had a Christmas Eve without their mom. She might not be nice or loyal, but she was their mom. I knew Matt and the girls would be with Helene on Christmas Day, and they cared about me. But what next? I tried not to see it when Michael seemed lost in thought. He was probably remembering 25 years of Christmases with his wife and daughters, meeting with Helene. Michael's thoughts life can really suck, then bam, it's over, or so they say. I couldn't keep still, walking back and forth in my living room, peeking through the window now and then to see if Terry was on her way. She wasn't due for another half an hour, but sitting wasn't an option. My world, once so neat and tidy, had turned into a whirlwind these past 6 months. And now, here I was, a mess, worried sick about what today might bring. Facing Helene should not have been this hard. I was up by 4, rolling around, trying to catch some more sleep till I gave up around 5:30. The dark and foggy morning matched my mood as I hit the road for a run. Usually a good run helps me think, clears my head. Not today. Today my brain refused to play nice. I love Helene, that's for sure. But she hurt me, ran off with that jerk. She's still the mom to our girls. They're grown up now, though, don't really need us sticking together. What about our 25 years together? But no, she hurt me. Can I let it go? Maybe. Can I forget? No way. Trust her again? Hard to imagine. And why did she have to look so stunning that day before Christmas? Because she's always been beautiful, the woman you've loved for a quarter of a century. And she looked at me like she still had all those feelings. I jogged along the Embarcadero, lost in thoughts about that unexpected meet 2 days before Christmas. Susan, my right hand, and a few others from my old law firm had put together a small lunch for me. Since I was now chief of security at McGregor Global, my role at the firm had shifted to of counsel. Though I wasn't working day to day, my name was still up there, and I kept a share of the profits. That day, as I made my way down Market Street to One Market Restaurant, a woman heavy with fancy shopping bags came out of Diva International Salon and bumped into me. I said sorry and bent down to pick up the shiny gifts that fell to the ground and couldn't believe it was Helene. We both froze, too shocked to speak for a bit. She spoke up first. No shock there, she was always the speaker as the litigator. "How are you, Michael?" Looking at her, she was as stunning as the day we got married. Her auburn hair was now short but looked great. She wore a cream sweater, a long dark green skirt, and really tall boots. Her jacket was over her arm. "Helene." "Two. I'm good," I stuttered, picking up the packages. My heart was racing. She looked so chill, not like the busy vibe she used to have. "I heard you got hurt. Are you okay?" She looked really worried. I thought about acting tough, but she was my wife for 25 years and could see through me. "Helene." Saying her name felt strange. "I'm actually okay now. You might have heard from the girls. Got shot in the leg, but I'm healed. I'm even running again." She stepped closer, a move full of warmth. Her scent was new, not like the one during our married days. "Michael, I'm truly glad. I didn't want any harm to come to you. I was worried." Her face was just as lovely as ever, her love shining like it did when we first married. My heart raced, but inside there was still a void. "Thanks, Helene. I'm sorry I've got to go. Susan and Jake Farber and some others from work are throwing a goodbye lunch for me at One Embarcadero. You're leaving again?" Her voice showed surprise. "No, not leaving. Just taking a step back at work to of counsel. With my new job as interim chief of security for global shipping, I just can't do both." I tried to reassure her with a smile. She looked relieved. "Goodbye, Helene." Odd. Those were the last words I said to her months back. Her sad eyes showed she remembered too. I walked away. "Michael?" I turned back. "Merry Christmas," she said softly, emotion in her voice. "Merry Christmas, Helene." As I walked, I felt uneasy. Saying Merry Christmas felt heavy. A run helped clear my head, but my thoughts were still a mess. Memories of Helene stirred feelings I'd rather not face. Pacing around, I glanced at my watch. Mrs. Wheeler tried to get me to eat, but I wasn't in the mood. I barely touched my egg and toast, and the coffee jolted my empty stomach. Why did I ask Terry to drive to Palo Alto? Because I wanted her with me? Yes. Because I love her? That was easy to answer. Yes, I do love her. I think I've known that for months. I sent her that letter from Yokohama. Too soon? Maybe. She never said she loved me. Why would she? Can't blame her for holding back. I was still with Helene, and maybe Terry saw right through me. Knew that it would be tough for me to leave 25 years behind with Helene. But Terry and Cassie, their love made me feel whole. That Christmas Eve with Terry healed my soul. Terry loved just one man, just like I loved only one woman. Terry's beauty was its own kind. She wasn't trying to be the most beautiful in the room or to catch every man's eye. She was beautiful for me. God, why am I so unsure? And what about Gina? After leaving her, I got 2 cards from Zurich. The first thanked me for the Christmas necklace. I pictured Gina wearing just that necklace. The next card said she missed me, wished we were together again, and asked when I'd be back in Europe. I cared for Gina, but deep down I knew our age gap and her love for her job meant we wouldn't last long. My thoughts were cut short. "Sir, Miss Blanton is here." I grabbed my soft leather jacket, checking for the photo inside, and went down to meet Terry. I also took the small box off the desk. Helene Connors sat in the big room at Johnson & Kemp Lawyers, staring at a yellow pad on the table. It was empty, and she felt stuck. She had to get ready for the most important talk of her life, trying to find reasons why Michael shouldn't leave her. But she just sat there, her mind drifting, unable to find the right words. For a week, she tried hard but couldn't sort her thoughts. Whenever she tried to focus, tears made it impossible to write. She kept thinking about their 25 years together, but it was that day 7 months ago on Michael's birthday that wrecked her. That day, everything fell apart. She played with the heavy ring on a gold chain around her neck. The memory of finding it made her cry. She found it 3 weeks after Michael vanished while looking for papers in the safe in the garage. There was Michael's wedding ring. She was shocked. Why is Michael's ring here? Then it hit her. He had been home after finding out she was unfaithful, but she thought he was in D.C. He must have been in the house and she didn't notice. The thought of Michael seeing her with Brian was too much, even worse than him seeing pictures or a DVD. Why did I do it? When? And why didn't she see? Did he pack? Did he take anything? Finding the ring hurt her more than anything else. It meant Michael couldn't forgive her and their marriage was done. A few hours later, Megan found her mom lying on the garage floor crying, the ring in her hand. Helene wore a gold chain given by Michael like a charm to keep him close. Dr. Claudia Chambers, her tough-love shrink, thought it also made Helene think of her own wrongs and of Michael more. Dr. Chambers, in her 40s with dark hair, didn't sugarcoat things. She was all for hard truths. Helene didn't need a reminder of her mistake or how much she missed Michael. For 7 months, she felt lost without him. He was her one true love from the first moment. She ached for him every day, scared she might never hold or be with him again. Despite Helene's flaws, self-centered, selfish, yes, narcissistic, things Dr. Chambers pointed out, Michael was always the loving one. He had looked after her and their daughters, Megan and Liz, better than she ever did over 25 years. The girls grew up strong and independent, learning from Michael, not Helene. He was always there for school events and bedtime stories, while Helene was caught up in her career. She once laughed off not having the mommy gene with a friend, yet Megan and Liz stuck by her trying to help. They knew love and forgiveness from their dad. But can Michael forgive me? Helene wondered. I don't know, said Helene. Can you forgive yourself? Dr. Chambers asked. Helene thought for a while. No, Claudia. Why? I was dumb and made a big mistake that lost me my true love and all we had. And I love him so much, Helene said with tears. So, Helene, why don't you talk about how Michael must have felt? Why do you think he left without a word? Helene looked out the window at the leafless trees in the foggy gloom. She wondered how she got to this sad point in her life, where she might go on alone. The thought of being alone scared her. Her mom died when she was 13, and her dad passed soon after she and Michael got married. Michael made her feel safe from being left alone. He was always there for her, to help and put up with her bad moods. When she heard he was shot during a bank robbery in L.A. and might not make it, she was scared out of her mind. She couldn't think of a life without Michael. It was hard for her to see him in the hospital, looking like he might die with bandages and tubes everywhere. She couldn't bear it. When they called to say he was awake, she cried on her bed, filled with relief and all the feelings she held in. It took her hours to get ready. She wanted to look her best and not let Michael see her worried or scared when she went to see him. Now, she had to face that scary future again. This time, it felt like Helene had handed the gun to Michael herself. Her mind doctor really shook her up by asking, "Why is it always about you, Helene?" What? Your fear of being left alone as you get older. Your worry that Michael might not forgive you, and that he might want to fix things. I don't get it. I think you don't, Helene. Aren't you listening? What about Michael? You never think about his feelings? Sadly, he didn't stick around long enough to face you and share his thoughts. How do you know if he cared? Those questions hit her hard. With Dr. Chambers' help, she realized she had taken Michael's love for granted. She thought she could do anything risky because his love would always be there to catch her. Helene, who always needed proof, suddenly didn't need any proof of Michael cheating. Why did she believe Brian's lies? Helene, it seems like you were ready to cheat anyway. But telling yourself Michael was cheating made you feel less guilty. Dr. Chambers was right. Deep down, she wanted it. You were up for it, and Brian was the first man to notice you were open to someone else. She knew she shouldn't have gotten close to Brian. He was known at work for being a flirt, and she liked the attention. She thought a little flirting was okay since it made her feel good, and with Michael away so much it seemed harmless. But Brian didn't stop chasing her. At the company's New Year's party, he found a moment to kiss her and even got a bit too handsy. His desire and his body against hers drove her wild. Brian wanted her. Brian didn't love her. He just wanted her for her body, her 45-year-old body. This made her so mad that she ended up with Michael at her place, and they had wild sex. She didn't look for Michael's softness or love. She just needed to get rid of the huge want she felt. Helene shed a tear remembering that night, the last time Michael was close to her. It's been about a year since she first went to that hotel with Brian. Right when they got to the room, Brian was all over her. He didn't wait or let her think twice. He just went for it. Deep down, she knew that's what she wanted too. Just sex. No thinking, no love, no gentleness. She had dressed up for it, in her sheer black bra, tiny silk panties, sheer stockings, and very high heels. Brian wasn't as big as Michael, but he was demanding, and that got her going over and over. She felt young and wanted. For a while, she liked the thrill of sneaking around because it added to the fun. Sometimes she wished Michael had been around more then. She wanted him to see her looking all satisfied and maybe guess that another man was seeing her. But Michael was so busy with work, especially with the Sharrows deal, and for some reason, Helene couldn't bring herself to be with Michael while she was seeing Brian. She noticed Michael was upset, and she missed being close, but as things went on with Brian, she started to think maybe Michael was seeing someone else because he stopped trying with her. Dr. Chambers asked her, "How many times can a man be turned away before he stops trying?" After about 6 weeks with Brian, Helene started to doubt it all. The fun with Brian cooled down after the first few times, and she knew he wasn't a forever thing. So she thought it was time to fix things with Michael. They decided to try to make their marriage better by going on a 6-month cruise. So, why did you keep going with Brian? Dr. Chambers and Helene had dug into that question a lot. Helene knew that stopping an affair was harder than starting one. Plus, Brian always wanted her, chasing her for sex. She enjoyed the attention from this younger, good-looking man. He really liked how Helene dressed up in stockings, garters, and heels for him, something she didn't do for Michael anymore. Why'd she stop wearing them even though Michael liked it? She couldn't say. 3 months into therapy, Dr. Chambers got serious. "Helene, we've been talking about signs. For 3 months, all about signs. But you haven't told me the real reason you tried to wreck your marriage to Michael, who you say is the only man you ever loved. I want the true cause." "Honestly, Claudia, I can't find a big reason. I just made a huge, dumb mistake, and it's costing me a lot." "Helene, you say Michael is the best husband and dad, and he loves you a lot. And aside from him being away a lot these last 2 years, you can't think of why you acted this way?" "Nothing." "Have you had other affairs?" "No way. How can you ask that?" "Just checking." "Ruling out a reason. I swear, vanity and dumb choices, that's it. What about money?" "Money? Claudia, we have plenty." "But was it always like that?" "No." "How does money work between you two?" "What do you mean? Who handles it? Who spends most?" "Well, Michael jokes that I'm the CFO, and he's not wrong. I deal with the bills, look after the accounts, and watch our investments. For big stuff, over $2,500, we talk about it first. So who earns the most?" "Michael does." "For how long?" "His business really soared about 5 years back, and his earnings jumped high. Before that, we made about the same. In fact, for the first 5 years in San Francisco, I was the one bringing in most of the money while Michael was getting his business off the ground. He made a good amount, but I earned more than double what he did." "So now he makes what, twice as much as you?" 2 years back, it shot up to about 10 times more. And this year, with the big Sharrows deal, we don't even need to work anymore." "How do you feel about that?" "I'm glad for him. For us." Dr. Chambers flipped through her notes. "A few weeks back, you said that 2 years ago you started feeling less interested in sex and became, in your words, really tough on Michael. Could those feelings be linked?" "I don't see how. I want him to do well." "Do you?" "Yes, of course." "Helene, if only marriages came with a guide. It's about working together, not fighting each other." Helene paused, thinking deeply while sitting in the cozy chair in Dr. Chambers' office. She spoke softly. 4 years ago, when I didn't get the big promotion, I pushed myself even harder, feeling like a loser, while Michael kept winning. 2.5 years ago, when the Sharrows deal started, Michael was buzzing with excitement. He said it was a huge chance for us and the firm. Honestly, I felt bitter. I was jealous of his wins, his knack for making things work. I told myself I was the smarter one, the one who worked harder and a way better lawyer. And just like that, Michael got all the luck. Got it? You saw him work hard all these years, even got mad when he wasn't home, and you still think you worked harder? Helene, I'm going plain here, but that's nuts. Helene stopped looking at the ground. How could I be so mean to him? I'm so dumb. Dr. Chambers just nodded. Now tell me about Terry and Cassie and why they scare you. With Claudia's help, Helene started to fight her bad thoughts, but she couldn't take back what she did to Michael. She watched the clock. Just 15 more minutes. Would Michael come early? She stopped trying to write and thought about what to say. She thought about taking one of the strong sleep pills Dr. Chambers gave her, but she wanted a clear mind. Plus, she had to save them. Why did Dr. Chambers give her so few? She knew she had to be honest. Tell Michael how much she loves him and beg for another chance. Promise to be true, never to leave, keep her wedding promise, and be a good wife and mom. What if he said no? She pushed that thought away as she wiped her eyes. He had every right. If it were her, she might have asked for a divorce too. But she was ready to forgive what she thought was his affair, so they could take a trip and start fresh. She wanted to forgive, but it was all a lie made up by her guilt and Brian's hints. The day Terry came with the divorce papers, she got mad thinking another woman was the reason. How funny that was. Terry was right to be mad. She knew I was at fault for thinking she was the one in the wrong. I wish I hadn't seen Michael right before Christmas. It hit me hard. He looked good, really sure of himself. He was more fit than I remembered, like a new Michael I hadn't noticed before. My heart jumped and my legs felt weak when we met on the street. Hearing him talk about the goodbye party made my heart drop. I couldn't stand the thought of him leaving again. How could I show him I love him and get him back? I wanted to hug him tight, say sorry, and hear him say everything would be okay. But that moment went away when he said, "Goodbye, Helene." My heart hurt because those were the same last words he had said months ago. I couldn't let those be our final words. I saw the sadness in his eyes as he said goodbye. Then I knew he had figured out something was wrong that day I was on the phone in the hallway of the palace with Brian. His goodbye had felt off, and then he wouldn't talk to me on the phone. Deep down, I knew there was trouble. I didn't listen to that feeling and went to the room with Brian. Weeks later, my nightmare started, and we hadn't spoken since. "Merry Christmas," was all I could say. Why not, "I'm sorry," or "Please forgive me"? I'm a top lawyer. But then, like now, I couldn't find the right words. I walked to the windows and looked out at the morning fog. I watched a minivan with its lights on pull into the parking lot. It pulled up right in front of the building, almost just below her window on the second floor. 2 folks were inside. Her heart dropped when she saw Michael and Terry. "Oh no, why is she here?" Tears fell again as she saw Terry lean over and hug him. "Hug her, Michael." She shouldn't. They hugged for a long, long time, Terry's head on Michael's shoulder. Helene stepped back from the window. Her mind was so full of sadness and loss she could barely stop crying. It was like the bad feelings from Michael's birthday came back all at once. She remembered that awful day and felt even worse. She grabbed her purse, found her pills, and quickly got some water, spilling it because she was so eager to feel the pills calm. Standing there, she felt like someone had punched her in the gut. That hug she saw told her everything was over. Without thinking much, she took another strong pill. She looked at the pill bottle. Maybe she should just take all of them now. Then she heard his steps on the stairs. When Michael met Terry, you walked up to Terry's mommy van just as she stepped out. She was dressed warm in a blue soft sweater and long skirt with tall boots, holding 2 Starbucks cups. She gave me a smile as I walked down the big stone steps. My heart leaped. God, she's stunning, and I'm so lucky she loves me. I could have driven or had McGregor Global's driver take me to see Helene, but I felt I needed to be with Terry this morning. She didn't really want to. Here you go, Michael. 1 big non-fat chai, extra hot. Thought you might need this since you probably skipped breakfast. I took the cup from her and set it on top of the van. Then I pulled her close and kissed her. Startled, she almost let her cup fall but quickly kissed me back. "Why did you do that?" she asked, out of breath. "Because you're the most lovely lady in San Francisco and you make me very happy." She turned a bit red at my words, and the worry I saw in her when she stepped out of the van faded away. She seemed to relax, as if she had just figured out a big puzzle. During the 45-minute drive to Palo Alto, we talked about her job and how Cassie was getting back into school after the Christmas break. But there was something I needed to ask her. Terry, I've been thinking about the past few years, and I don't think Helene's affair was a shock to you. She looked at me, her smile gone. Then she looked at the road and thought for a bit. Michael, I'm a woman and really good at finding things out. I look for how people behave and when they act out of the ordinary. I probably knew something was really wrong with your marriage way before you did. Why didn't you tell me? I tried to hint at it a few times. When we had lunch at Boulevard, I'd usually bring up Helene. You'd talk about how good she was doing or about her big cases, but then you stopped talking about her. You talk about Megan and Liz, but nothing about Helene except she's fine or something short like that. Michael, that's a warning sign. I thought it was because you were so busy with the Charos deal. I guess that you being away a lot was hard on your marriage. Also, sometimes when we met each week to talk about my work on Charos and his family and their business, I noticed you'd look lost. I ended up thinking it was something to do with you and Helene. There were times during lunch when I thought you'd share your heart with me, but it never happened. Even with old friends, it's tough to share deep stuff. So, when I popped into your office months ago to ask about Helene, you weren't shocked? No, Michael, I was. Honestly, I thought Helene was too wise for such acts. But looking back, I might have seen it coming. How? From the society pages. What? Michael, we both know Helene loves the spotlight. She always pulled you to those charity dances and events, and often your photos ended up in the newspapers. Sue never saw it. I get it, Michael. You don't like rumors and never read those society pages. Wouldn't shock me if Helene kept a book filled with those paper cuts. So, what does this mean for us? When I was looking into things, I started to think about those society pages. I read them since many of those folks are or will be my clients. Something about you and Helene struck me odd. So, I had my record keeper look up the past couple of years in the Chronicle and the Examiner, and you vanished from the pictures. What? While you were tied up with the Charos deal, Helene kept going to those events alone. Did you know? No. I just shook my head. She never said. No, Michael, I didn't think so. Helene loves the spotlight, and she kept it up even when you were gone. Man, what's with her? There's more. Okay, spill it. A few months back, Brian Taylor began popping up in those photos. That snake. First, he was just there in the back. Then it got more obvious. You know the photo caption. Helene Connors and Brian Taylor from the firm of Williamson and Jenkins helped the Junior League raise money. At the opera's big night, she was there for Williamson and Jenkins, a big money backer. No bad talk was out there, but those pictures made them look too close. Can she really be this silly? What was she trying to show off? Did she hope I'd find out? Maybe. What? Could be it started as just a bit of fun. Then, as things got deep, it was about getting your eye. She thought you'd see those snaps with Brian or hear about them, and then you'd get green-eyed and show her more love. Michael, Helene feels unsure a lot, and you're her rock, her big cheer. You love her fully, then you're out of her world for years. Terry, that's rough. I get it, but you know Helene better than most and might see the reason. So this whole mess was to get my look? That's nuts. I guess at first, but after it got real, maybe she aimed to make you feel bad for leaving her. Could be. I'll just talk to her. The ride went on quiet. I had to mull over a lot. I wished I hadn't brought it up with Terry. Talking about it made the hurt and anger fresh again. Michael, we're here. I saw her slight smile and her eyes shine. Her blue sweater made her eyes pop and showed her shape well. She came close and hugged me. I breathed in the clean scent from her hair and the soft smell of her perfume. I loved the zingy taste from that first time on Christmas Eve and every time since. Terry, I love you. Saying it hit me deep. She clung tighter, her face in my neck. I felt a warm tear there. I love you, Michael, always will, she barely said. I stepped out of the van and walked into Johnson and Kemp's place. I felt the photo in my jacket pocket to make sure it was still there. First thing I saw, Helene looked bad. She stood by the windows and turned to me. Dressed sharp as ever in a skirt, boots, and a dark green silk top, but her eyes were deep set and her face thin. She had been crying. There was a tissue box on the shiny table, a blank pad, and the fancy silver pen I once gave her. How are you, Helene? She gave me a look, trying to read my mood. Some days are okay. How about you, Michael? To be honest, Helene, it's like I'm in a weird dream. Everything's all mixed up and flipped around. Helene cracked a small smile at that. I pulled out one of the big brown leather chairs close to where she was. She probably thought I'd sit far from her, but we had been together 25 years. It felt right to be close as we let go of our marriage. "Come sit, Helene," I said, nodding to the chair by me. She shook her head, her short auburn hair moving. "I work better on my feet," she said with a sad grin, as if sharing a private joke. She looked so pretty and so hurt. I wanted to hug her, make it better, but those times were gone. It hurt knowing I wouldn't hold her again. We had been through so much, I wondered, why did she let everything we had go? Helene moved closer and stopped a bit away, just looking at me. The sadness in her eyes was hard to see. "Michael, I'm so sorry. Sorry for what I did to you, to us. I loved you the first time I saw you." Her voice cracked as she tried to stop the cry. "I'll always love you. I hoped we'd get old together." She let her tears fall. "I'm talking to a doctor now. She helped me see my own bad stuff, my need to be first, my envy of your wins, and oh, my dumb acts," she cried out. "I hurt you a lot because of it. I get it now that us getting back together is just not going to happen. But I need to ask if you can forgive me." I watched her, wishing I could make her pain go away, but I felt too empty inside. "Helene, come sit down." I stood up and moved her chair out. She fell into it, hiding her face, crying harder. I had never seen her like this, not in 25 years. I gave her tissues and then brought her some water. She was really thankful for these small things. "I'm sorry, Michael. I didn't want you to see me like this. I wanted to be the strong Helene for you. I'm so sorry." Despite my pain and anger, her sadness moved me. I had loved her my whole grown life. My task was to keep her safe and help her. It hurt me to see her in pain. She looked up, a bit calmer. "Dr. Chambers, my doctor, said I needed to hear how you felt when you found out I wasn't true." She started crying again. "You might not want to hear that, Helene. It's key, Michael. Key for us both." She took another tissue. I paused, my mind spinning. Where do I start? "Helene, let me talk about my worst day, about 7 months back. At the hotel, I saw Brian Taylor touch you. Your eyes grew wide with shock and fear. That day was big for me. I had just finished a huge deal and was rushing home to tell you. I hoped it would start something new for us. We could finally take that trip you wanted. Even though we weren't as close lately, I hoped we could find each other again." Helene just stared, pale, her mouth opened and closed as if she wanted to say something. But I had to finish. "I saw you outside the hotel. I was so happy I followed you in. You remember? I called you, and while we were talking, Brian put his hand on your leg. He shouldn't have done that, and you shouldn't have let him. I got louder and she pulled back. Sorry." Helene cried without trying to stop it. Why didn't I stop it right then? I wanted to. I wanted to fight him and maybe you too, but it felt like my heart broke and left me. Seeing my wife of 25 years with another man crushed me. She hid her face and cried harder, unable to look at me. I knew it wasn't the first time, Helene. If I had asked you then, would you have told the truth? I don't think so. You're good at arguing. You'd have said I got it wrong. I see you found my ring. She looked at it and touched it softly. I went home, packed a bit, and left the ring for you. I don't know when you found it, but I couldn't wear it after what I saw. I just couldn't. She winced. I need to show you something. I pulled out an old bent photo from my coat and put it on the table. I had to flatten it out to make it sit right. I need you to see this, Helene. She just stared at me, seeing how mad I was. Look, I said, a bit softer. She finally looked down at the photo. Her eyes got big and tears fell on the photo. Out of all the stuff Terry and her team found, this is all I kept. I got rid of everything else. All the pics of you with Brian, all the sounds of you cheating. She flinched. You got any idea what it does to a guy? Seeing the only woman he's ever loved with another man? Loving him back like she didn't care? Helene couldn't look at me. She kept staring at the photo, maybe thinking about when it was taken. Why this photo? It's just you in a fancy hotel robe, smiling a bit. It's that smile and the look on your face like you just had a good time that got to me. I thought that smile was just for me. But there it was. For someone else. I've had this photo since right before I left for Asia. At first it kept the anger and hate going strong. Yep, anger and hate. Can you believe it? Feeling that way about a woman I've loved for 25 years? I used to look at it every day, but I knew I couldn't keep those feelings. They were tearing me up. Working at Global saved me. It gave me something to focus on, took my mind off the pain and betrayal. I'm starting to heal, putting myself back together piece by piece. You have broken my heart, Helene, in a way only someone you truly love can, I said. Can I let it go? Will I? I looked away from the picture, tears still in my eyes. Yes, I can and I will. Not for you, Helene, but for me. You were right when you said we can't go back to how things were. Even though I love you and we've spent 25 years together, what happened can't just disappear. A marriage needs trust, love, and respect. The love is there. I believe you when you say you love me. But the trust is gone, and the respect you had for me went away too. I made the Charos deal happen without you, without my partner. Maybe I did it despite you because that was our worst time. Do you remember? I asked you to come to Europe with me the first 2 times. You were too busy but didn't like it when I was gone. Then the last time you said yes but started a fight over nothing, so I went alone. At my new job with Global, I'll be traveling a lot. I'd always worry, Helene, about what you were doing, who you were with. We don't have trust anymore. I picked up the photo and moved a big brown ashtray closer. I took out a silver lighter, a gift from McGregor, lit the corner of the photo, and let it burn in the ashtray. We watched it turn to ash. Helene's smile disappeared in the flames. She turned to face me. Our knees almost touched. She was pale, past tears. Even though I love you, Helene, our marriage is like that photo, just ash. It can't be fixed. It's gone. She tried to speak, but I stopped her. Is this what your therapist wanted, Helene? Does it show you how I feel and what your unfaithfulness caused? She just nodded slightly. I won't make you look bad or push you away in front of others. We're bound to bump into each other around here. It's not a big city, and we hang out with the same folks. I won't make Megan and Liz pick who they like more, and I'll be right next to you at Megan's wedding in a few weeks. But that's it. Don't reach out if you feel alone. Don't try to get in touch for any reason. I can let go of what you did, but it'll always be in my mind. Like that picture, I'll try my best to turn those bad memories to dust. Helene, you weren't the partner I needed. I need someone who loves me in a giving way. Someone who wants to be my sidekick, not someone who tries to beat me. You've either forgotten or maybe you never knew that being married means both of us always being there for each other. We need to talk. I need someone who can take my love and cheer for me when I do well, just like I'd cheer for her. Someone who doesn't use their looks to play games or hurt. And someone who stays true. She didn't say anything for what felt like forever. Like Terry? She finally whispered. I looked at her and saw her sadness. Yes, Helene, just like Terry. I stood up. Are you ready to sign the papers so we can move on? She looked at me. A single tear ran down her face. She nodded. I walked to the door and opened it. Goodbye, Helene. I closed the door softly. The meeting Helene Connors laid her head down on the table, her cheek against the smooth surface. The pills helped her relax. She hid her face with her arms, trying to shut out the anger and pain. How did it get to this point? How could she have messed up so badly? Slowly, she lifted her head and looked for her purse. Then she took out the amber bottle and opened it. 6, 7, 8, 9. Probably not enough. She decided to wait and save them. No matter how bad she felt now, she'd wait for her next refill to have enough. Maybe she'd grab 1 or 2 to make it through Megan's big day, but then she'd be set. For sure, that should do it. The empty feeling and fear of getting old without the only man she ever really loved made her choice easy. Terry. 5 years later, near Belize, Central America, I stood by the door of the right side room on the Gabriel, leaning as I watched Michael tell a bedtime tale to our 2 sweet girls. Sarah, 3.5 with light hair like her sis, sat on his lap on the bed. Cassie, 13, leaned on his shoulder, her arm linked with his, snug by his side. The book about Ralph the dog was really for little kids, but Cassie didn't mind. She was just happy to be near them, more so since Michael became her true dad over the last 4 years. These past months on, the Gabriel felt like a dream as we slowly moved along California and Mexico's coast, then through the Panama Canal. The weather was perfect, and each day felt like we were the only folks on Earth. The blue-green of the Pacific was just as folks say as we headed south. We were just enjoying our time, no rush. Michael, still in charge of security at McGregor Global, would check in now and then, but his team back in San Francisco had things under control. Michael looked so at ease and joyful, the most I've ever seen. Not that he wasn't always happy with the girls and me, but being away from work and all the travel, he could really relax. It was all about the girls, but we still found moments for us. He was an amazing, loving dad and husband. Why did Helene ever cheat? Michael was the perfect partner and father. I shook off those bad memories. Mike was now full of joy. Gone were the dark days when shock, pain, and betrayal from the only woman he loved filled his heart. I made myself think of the good times instead. The lovely 5 years we spent together when our daughter was born, and the love we shared every single day. I looked at the 2-carat ring on my left hand and thought back to when he gave it to me. We had just come out from his talk with Helene. He came back to me, sitting in a big soft leather chair, trying and failing to read the paper for the last 30 minutes, my cold coffee still by my side. Mike took my hand, a small smile on his lips, and lifted me up and kissed me. Right then, all my worries about him and us melted away. We drove back to the city, not talking much, his hand warm and comfy on my leg. As we drove by Huntington Park on Nob Hill, he asked me to stop the car. Mike wanted to walk a bit. The sun was starting to cut through the fog as we walked hand in hand. After a bit, he stopped and faced me, still holding my hand. "Terry, you know I love you." I just nodded, too filled with feelings to talk. "And I know you love me, have for a long time. These last few weeks made me think a lot about my future. I've told you how much I missed you when I was away. Your smile, your warmth, and most of all, your love. And I know it might seem too soon, seeing that I'm just getting divorced from Helene, but I want us to be together all the time. I want this to last forever. I want you to be my wife." What? I was so shocked that was all I could say. With all the ups and downs I had been through lately, especially today, I was speechless. I had hoped that one day he might want us to be more, but him saying it left me without words. "Will you marry me? I'm sorry to drop this on you so fast. I just had to ask before I lost you." I stopped and looked at him. I loved this kind man so much. He was everything to me. "Michael, oh yes, you amazing man. I'll marry you. I love you, and that part about not letting me go. Well, you won't have to worry about that." I wrapped my arms around his neck and hugged him tight, kissing him hard as he searched in his jacket. "Hold still and let me kiss you right. What are you looking for anyway?" At last, he gave me a small box covered in black velvet. It looked like it had a ring inside. My heart skipped and my hands shook as I opened it. "Oh my God! Michael!" He took out a shining big diamond ring from the box and reached for my left hand, but then I stopped. "Michael, before I take this ring, I need to know about the woman on your plane." So he told me about Gina. I felt so many things as he talked about how they met, her job as his nurse and then as lovers. I felt hurt and sad because I had hoped I would be the one to help him heal and move on. I had waited for him for 15 years. Why did it have to be young, pretty Gina first after Helene? I knew they were together just by seeing them, but what got to me the most was how deep Michael's feelings for Gina were. I guess I shouldn't have been shocked. Michael was serious about relationships. Tears filled my eyes as we sat on a fancy bench in the park. I didn't want to hear about his feelings for Gina, but I had to know. "Terry, I've chosen. It's you I want to be with forever, not Gina." "But, Michael, she's with Global. You'll see her again. And from what I saw and what you've said, she really cares for you." I saw a quick spark of anger in his eyes, then they got soft again. He grinned. "Terry, you think I can't keep away from a pretty young lady?" I looked into his eyes and grinned too. I knew where this was going. "I didn't fall for you in the past 9 years, did I?" He laughed. Then he got a bit more serious. "I'm not as clueless about ladies as you might think. Right after you came to San Francisco, I saw you liked me. I liked the attention, and it made me look good to be seen with a pretty young blonde like you. But I was married to Helene. As long as my marriage was okay, it was better we stayed just friends, even more when my marriage started to have problems and we were so close at work. Terry, what if I had asked you back then? You wouldn't want to be my side thing, right? The love and respect you had for me wouldn't be the same. I hugged him tight. Terry, I love you and no one else. You're the one I want, and I'll always stick by you. He took my hand gently and put the ring on my finger. Tears ran down my cheeks. Now, 5 years later on the Gabriel, I watched him with our girls. He was my everything, and I never doubted that. The only thing that could make me happier right now was if little Mikhail was here, sitting with Michael. At 4, he was too young to leave Gina for our 6-month trip, even though he loved me, his sisters, and his dad, Michael. But it was more about Gina not wanting to be away from him for so long. Yes, Mikhail was Michael's son with Gina, from their short time together. He was named after Gina's dad, Big Mikhail, or so Gina said. A couple of months after we got engaged, Gina came to see us in San Francisco with big news. She was going to have Michael's baby. She wasn't asking for anything, just wanted Michael to know. She was really happy and planned to move back to be close to her family and Michael if he wanted to be in the baby's life. Michael, being the great guy he is, helped Gina a lot. He made sure she could keep her job at Global without flying much, more like giving advice on medical stuff. He found her an apartment close by and got her in touch with the top doctors here. Her office was in the big house on Nob Hill, like Michael's was. Gina really liked Michael, and even after they moved from being lovers to friends because of me, I could sometimes tell she still had deep feelings for him, especially now they were having a baby together. Gina and I got close fast, almost like sisters, and she helped me with my wedding while I helped her get ready for the baby, Mikhail. Cassie and Gina got along well too. We were there holding Gina's hands when Mikhail came into the world. Michael's name is down as the dad, and we made sure Mikhail would have all the things our own kids would. After Mikhail was born, Gina stayed in the big house in a new apartment Michael set up for her. He even hired her as the deputy head of security. Michael and I got married a few weeks after Mikhail was born, right there in the house on Nob Hill. Mr. McGregor walked me down the aisle, and Michael's buddy Jake Farber was the best man. The guests included Sergeant Major Sloan and Michael's helicopter pilot, Janice Elders. She was wearing a big diamond ring and looked very much in love. It was nice to see another lady close to my age, also in love with a man about 12 years older. The next day, Cassie and I made our new home on Nob Hill. Gina was super helpful when I was pregnant with Sarah, and after we both went back to work, we shared a nanny who became part of our home. Gina and Mikhail were like family to us. I sometimes thought about what people might think when they saw us out and about. 2 younger ladies with our arms linked with Michael's as he pushed the stroller with our little one inside. Michael loved the looks he got from other guys. Gina was about to marry a great guy who flew planes for Horizon Air. They planned their wedding for October and would move to Portland. We were going to miss them a lot, but since she'd get to fly for free, we knew we'd visit a lot. Tomorrow, all 4 of us are flying to Belize City to catch up with them coming in from Dallas. Gina and Mikhail were going to spend 2 weeks with us. Cassie and Sarah didn't want to stay behind when Michael and I were going for just a short trip. Mom, Dad, we gotta come too. Mikhail's like our brother, so why can we not go? Cassie whined with her soon-to-be teenager face. All right, we all go. The girls rushed to get ready for bed. Their happy chit-chat about the next day and meeting Gina and Mikhail floated up as they went. Michael, you're such a softie, I said with a smile as I hugged him. You spoil the girls too much. Like I spoil you? That's different. You're my hubby. You gotta spoil me. He smiled big and pulled me in close. Terry, do you know how much I love you? I hummed, leaning into him. Feels like I'm about to find out. Watching him with the girls made me so happy. He looked up and our eyes met. He looked so full of joy. I wore a boating outfit, a white tiny swimsuit with one of his old white shirts over it to stay warm in the cool night air. The shirt was open to show off a bit of my chest. I gave him a flirty smile and silently said, "Shower." He grinned and agreed. As I showered, I thought about the kind man I married and how it didn't match the stories I read about him attacking a pirate island. Then, Brian Taylor popped into my head. About half a year after Michael came back to San Francisco, the Harbor Patrol found Brian's body in the bay. He was badly hurt and had a bullet in his forehead. I wanted to know what happened to him. At my ask, My work buddy Greg Teller got a short version of the post-mortem report from a police friend and a note from the drug team. The report said Brian had lots of heroin and cocaine in him. It seems Brian got mixed up in small-time cocaine dealing and crossed paths with big drug people in Oakland. The drug cops thought they'd catch him one day and make him talk about the Oakland drug bosses. They guessed someone from the drug group killed him, but no one knew why. The report also said they never found his Porsche. I often thought about if Michael had anything to do with Brian. Could my gentle partner and dad to our girls have hurt and then killed Brian? I doubted it. But there was this one day, a few days before they found Brian, that made me wonder. I drove to our Nob Hill house where Michael and I often had breakfast. Since we were still not officially done with his divorce, we didn't spend many nights together then. I was early for our breakfast and sat in my van looking at some work papers when Michael walked by looking lost. He was in his sweats and seemed like he hadn't slept. He went straight to the house, not seeing me. I caught up to him as he was about to open the door. "Michael, are you okay?" He jumped a bit, looking surprised. "Terry, you scared me." "No, I'm fine. Just had a bad night. Thought I'd go for a run." "You don't look good. Are you sick?" "No." "Or hurt? Your hands are bloody and you've got a mark on your face." No, Terry, I'm okay. Just feel silly. Fell on the street." He tried to smile, but his eyes were sad. "Guess I'm getting old. Can't stand up straight anymore. Let's go in. I'll shower and feel better. Tell Mrs. Wheeler I'll be down in 15 minutes for breakfast." He went to shower, and we didn't share our usual morning kiss. He seemed worried all day and didn't come to dinner, saying he was too tired. When they found Brian's body, my mind started to race. I couldn't stop thinking that the morning's events and Brian's death were linked. Reading the police report and knowing Brian was a drug seller, I almost forgot my worries about Michael. I never asked Michael about it, even though I bet he saw it in the news too. He didn't talk about it, but I sometimes thought about it. I tried to think about nicer things. The world was better off without Brian Taylor. He wouldn't sell drugs, wreck homes, or steal money ever again. It had been 5 years, and Brian was known for bad stuff. Many people didn't like him. I dried my hair, put on a silk robe, and went to say night to the girls. Helene a few months later, Diva International Salon, San Francisco. "Thanks, Simone. It's just right. You're amazing." "Helene, it's easy when I work on someone as pretty as you." Helene laughed. "Simone, trying for a bigger tip?" They both laughed as Helene gave her stylist a big tip. Helene looked at herself in the big mirror. She had just spoilt herself with a full makeover at her top spot. "Yes, just what I want for tonight. Just the right fancy look." She planned to go home and change into one of her fancy dresses that showed off her legs and a bit of her chest. She looked at herself, dressed in her light gray lawyer suit with a burgundy silk top. The skirt was shorter than she used to wear, and the shoes had higher heels. At 50, a woman needs to show off a bit more if she still can. She thought, happy with her long legs. She had a date with a younger conductor who was in town with the San Francisco Symphony. At 50, dating younger men made her feel good about herself, and she liked their energy in bed. She planned to take Mr. Conductor back to her high-up condo and show him how an older woman can impress him in bed. She smiled at the thought and felt a thrill. Tonight, with the handsome conductor, she would surely get a photo in the Chronicle. She hoped Michael would see her photo. And what? Feel jealous? That was silly. Her mood dropped as she thought about what her therapist, Dr. Chambers, told her. Helene, can't you understand? Michael's married and has a kid. Doing things with Michael in mind isn't helping you move on. Don't you see? Michael has moved on with his life. She didn't think about those hard times much anymore. That day when Terry showed her the photos and emails, the day at Johnson & Kemp when Michael said it was over. Some days she was okay, but then the memories would hit her hard. She never knew when thoughts of an angry and hurt Michael would come, but they did. And it still hurt. She kept herself busy. Her own law office was doing good, and she started helping at Paws. Even though it was a surprise, she was happy to have adopted a dog. It was a golden lab mix who was her loyal friend and loved running with Helene by the water. She often visited Megan and Matt and little Matt Jr. at Camp Pendleton near San Diego. Matt was still with the Marines, going to Iraq and Afghanistan a lot. Megan was a teacher in Carlsbad and expecting their second kid. Helene wished Liz would find her place. She was in the Peace Corps and now in Washington, D.C. Helene knew Michael and Terry saw her a lot because Michael often went to Washington. Helene looked again in the big salon mirror and smiled. Tonight and tomorrow she hoped to be the center of attention and maybe have the young conductor over. She also hoped for her photo in the paper. She stopped at the salon doors to grab her sunglasses from her bag. "Oh, Mrs. Connors, just a second." Helene turned to see who was calling her. Her heart dropped when she saw who it was. It was Terry, the new Mrs. Connors, and she looked stunning, wearing a white sweater and a tan skirt that showed off her tan legs. Terry's shoes with high heels and straps made her legs look even better. Her blonde hair was cut short, almost white from the sun, making her look younger than she was. Helene realized Terry didn't see her there in the salon. The girl at the front told Terry, "Mrs. Connors, Greg wants to talk with you for a bit, and congrats." Helene saw the salon's boss come out and hug Terry. He stepped back, took a good look at her. "Terry, you're shining. Congrats. Patty just told me, are you and Michael happy? Do you know if it's a boy or girl?" "No, Greg, but it's exciting. Do you want another girl?" "Michael says it's all the same, but I think handling 3 girls might be too much." She laughed. "That trip on the boat made you even more beautiful," he said with a smile. Helene felt a punch of sadness, her mind filled with loss. As Greg and Terry said bye, she made herself leave. Her hands shook as she put on her sunglasses. She stood by the salon, hidden by a big column. Helene looked at the spot where she and Michael had met over 5 years ago. Sadness hit her hard, and she leaned against the wall, trying to calm down. Just then, a big black Audi parked in front of the salon. It was so new, it still had a paper tag. Through its reflection, she saw herself and noticed the V10 sign on its side. When Terry left the salon, a small blonde girl about 4 ran from the car to hug her. Helene knew she was Sarah, Michael, and Terry's kid. Terry lifted her into her arms as they walked back to the car. "Mommy, Daddy said Cassie and me are the most beautiful girls in the world." "Did he now? And what about me?" She laughed. The girl looked at her mom. "Daddy says you're the most beautiful woman in the world." Just then, Michael came from the car to say hi to Terry. He looked good and chilled, in a shirt with no tie, a light jacket, and dark glasses. Holding their daughter, Terry gave him a deep kiss, not a quick one like Helene did when they were together. Helene felt weird. Their kid said, "Daddy says tonight we can eat all the cake and ice cream we want at his party." Terry gave a serious look. Sarah looked at her dad for help. He smiled and nodded. "Yes, Princess. It's my birthday, so I decide the rules, not Mommy." They both smiled. "Oh no, today's Michael's birthday," Helene thought. Helene watched as Michael made sure Sarah was safe in her car seat, then helped Terry into the car. He closed the door, walked around the car, and looked right at Helene. He took off his glasses, gave a small smile to say he saw her, put them back on, got in the car, and drove off without looking back. Helene felt dizzy. She was glad she had the wall for support. It took her a bit to feel okay again. She moved down the road, turning her head to say, "Happy birthday, Michael." A tear ran down, messing up her face paint. Hey, listeners! If you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.